Hey everyone, it's Ria. Thanks for coming back to my channel and joining me today on my second Marathon Society event. I had a really fun time last month sewing up the McCallie by K. Dill Handmade, and I'm really excited to be able to sew up the Gabriella today by Brittany from the Empurrium. This is such a great bag. As you can see, mine is not a cat bag. In fact, it's got a fair number of changes to it because I've made this into a travel bag. I've made it so that if you're going somewhere where you might be in a very touristy area, perhaps where there's a lot of pickpocketing going on, you've got some features to this to help deter those pickpocketers. And so I made one for myself like that. You can see it's this one right here. In fact, I have a video about it, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this right now because you can go watch that video. I'll link it for you. But I'm going to make those same changes to this one here. So some of the changes we do make, just high level right now, and you can watch the video for the rest. We're going to keep this flap. I'm not going to get rid of that. This right here, this flap, which has a pocket that goes all the way down to the bottom. This is what told me it's a travel bag, because in that flap, you can put everything of value, like your wallet, your passport, your phone, when you're in those really high traffic touristy areas. But for some other things to have also to provide a little bit of security, we've got a magnetic slip pocket on the back. Added that on. We have added let me zip it up. So it's just unzipped. There we go. A zipper panel inside, which actually, and thinking about this right now, I know you might think, oh, we've got the flap, you don't need it. And that's true, normally you don't. It'll be great for those touristy areas. But I also found this really useful when I was on the plane, because if you're like me, I'll put this under the seat in front of me so I can grab it. But if it tips over and you only have a flap, things could roll out the side. This prevented that from happening. So it's good for plane travel. But so we've got the zipper panel there. We also have, I don't know how well I can show this to you, but there is right here a little, there we go, I think you can see it, 1/2 inch swivel clip. That is so that, yes, you can put your keys on it, but you could also, when you zip the zipper panel closed, you could latch it so it's a little harder to open. There's also a zipper pocket still inside right here, so you could always close that. Of course, this is all assuming you're using something like the pop tab pull. You need something you could latch onto. So we have that. We do also have a slip pocket that we've added because can you have too many pockets? No. So just nice to have another pocket. And then the last thing we change is the strap. Rather than having a fully detachable strap, we have one side that's attached, one side that is removable. And that way, when you are sitting somewhere outside, for example, and you want to at a table, having dinner, having at a cafe, something along those lines, you can take the purse off. You don't have to hold it close to you. You could put it down at your feet. Don't put it on the back of your chair, but you could put it at your feet. You could put it somewhat next to you, and you could wrap the strap around your chair leg, your table leg, your leg, and it's going to help keep it from going anywhere. So that's a nice feature to have there. So all of these, hopefully you'll find pretty interesting and will like watching how we make it. We do also do this as a drop-in lining, so if you'd like to see how I do that, definitely stick around so you'll be able to see that. Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this as you watch it, and check out the other videos as well of everyone who took part today. Let's get sewing. Let's look at the materials we're going to be using for the Gabriella. I have 3 piles, which you can sort of see here. So we're going to start with this middle pile because this is for the part of the Gabriella that we probably think of first. Let's pull it out here. I've got mine. Okay, so here is my travel version, and of course the Gabriella has this flap, which is also a pocket, and it creates an inside pocket. And that's what this is right here. So we have our zipper and the 2 pulls. I already cut it to the length it needs to be. I also cut the zipper tabs and put them on just to make it easier. I made one long piece so that I could just do it like that. So we've got our zippers. We're going to have the magnetic snap on the flap. So this will be the inside right here, actually, of my flap. So again, this is going to be the inside. I've just already clipped it together. I did put on this, you can see the magnets there, I did put a little piece of Decaville light behind there. You don't really need it. I mean, this is nice vinyl, but I just want to be certain that it's not going to come apart in any way. So or not tear, come apart, rip. So I just did that to be safe. And then this is self-adhesive fleece from Fabric Therapy. I just put on it to sort of protect the other side of the flap right there from that. So that's what will be again, if we look here, this part right here, that's what this is right here. Before we look at this, here will be the lining. So this, there we go. You can see that's the interior of it. And this is where things are going to be a little different. This is normally this part right here. On the standard version, it would be 2 pieces, but this might be where you have the tail if you're doing the cat version. Otherwise, maybe just solid, or it's just the back and the top. That's normally what it is. But we're going to be putting a pocket on. Now, as I described in the intro, the way I did it here was it was so thick in these side seams, so thick. And so we're going to change it. I realized that some of the best sneaky slip pockets are from Sincerely Jen Patterns. And so I pulled out my template piece for the one with Mormino, and guess what? It is the exact size as this piece right here for the back bottom of that zipper flap pocket. Same size. So I was able to use that piece right here, cut out this notch. I didn't use the pattern pieces to do the rest of it because I'm like, yeah, it'll be fine. We'll see. Hopefully it will be. But note that if you want to do something like this and you have the one with Mormino pattern, you can use that back pocket piece from that pattern for this as well. So that's what this is here. What I will do then, as you can see, I already have what will be the lining. So this will be here. I put another magnet right there. And then this will be what goes behind it right here. See if I can get this all together like this. You can sort of imagine. And then the flap will be like this. So I'll sew this all together here. It'll all line up nicely. And then I'll do right sides together like this. And it'll come up, and that will be my flap. And so we'll have a hidden little pocket here. I haven't put the magnet on this side yet. I will show you how I do that. I could, go off of a pattern and figure out, but I'll show you what I normally do. I just sort of use what's existing here to determine where the other one should go. So that's going to be the sneaky hidden back pocket. That's part of my zipper flap there. So that is, oops, sorry, move this over. Then we have to finish out the exterior, our sides, which I've already interfaced with the Decaville, and here's the base. Now, you normally, per the pattern, would have these be 3/4 inch, because that is what it is. I'm going to be making a 1 inch strap, and because of how I'm going to attach the strap, I need these to be 1 inch as well. So just note that these are cut for 1 inch hardware. I've already done this cut on this one here, and I'll show you how I do that one here. And then here is the front, here is the back. As you can see, I'll have to snip right there. But I have my magnet here already too, so I can do that when I'm ready. You'll also notice on these, it's a little hard to tell here because it is right at the top. Sorry, it's right there. I've got some lines marked. I need to go back and put these on here again. I'm going to be doing a drop-in lining, and so I have already marked where I need to fold down to. So I like to do that ahead of time if I can. Here's where my magnet will go. But yeah, I like to have those marked ahead of time if I can. It makes it a lot easier later when I put it together, if those lines are there. I don't have to mark them. So that's the rest of the exterior. And then for the lining, we're going to change things up there as well. I'm going to be doing a zipper panel. So I have the pieces here for my zipper panel and my zipper, so as you can see there. And then let me sort of sort things up. Because I'm doing a zipper panel on the main pieces, there we go, I'm going to need to have something on the top, and so I'm going to use more of the same vinyl. Here we go, so you can sort of get the idea right here. It'll be like that with the panel in between. So I've got those 2 pieces there. I have my sides, and because I want it to be the same on the top all the way around, I cut off the same amount on my sides that I did here on these panels so that I could have it sort of match all around, similar to what you do in other bags where you've got a recessed zipper. If you were to do the top part in the same material as the rest of your lining, you wouldn't have to do this. And you don't have to do this now. It's just what I decided to do. Here's my base. I'm going to put in a slip pocket, and so that's what this is. I already cut it out to the size I want. I've got some tape on here, and so I will just fold it up like this so I don't have to actually sew it, and then I'm going to put on a piece of trim, and I've got a little sticker that, or not sticker, I'm sorry, tag that'll go there. So we've got a little slip pocket that's going to go on. I do have a zipper pocket, so here's the overlay that I'll use, and so I'll use that. Here are the pieces. I realized I cut this out ahead of time and thought, you know what, you might like to see what I do, so I have an extra, mainly because I cut this one first and then it fell and I didn't see where it was, and oh, cut another, yay, we've got two. So I'll do it for that so you can see how I cut that, so you can see it's already traced out. I have a really easy way of doing these, so that's why I just thought I'd show you. This will be for the strap connectors. As I mentioned, I do need to use 1 inch, so I've got 1 inch hardware here. We're going to have one side be fully connected and one side will have a place for a D-ring, or not a D-ring, I'm sorry, swivel clip. So here we have the hardware for our strap, which will be double-sided. So I've got some Georgia Girl Stitches webbing. I have more of this material. This is actually waterproof cotton from the Empurrium, which is also what... Well, yeah, that's what the pattern, I guess this is vinyl, same print in vinyl there. That's what I was looking for, also from the Empurrium. The rest of the materials are all from More Me Now. And then I'm going to put on the inside this little 1/2 inch swivel clip, and I've got a piece of webbing that I can use, and that's going to be, so you could put your keys on it, but it's also to help lock your, secure, not lock, but secure your zipper to your top recessed zipper panel if you'd like. And this is the zipper for my interior pocket, and I will have a zipper end for that zipper panel, but I just don't have it here right now. That's everything. So that's everything we're going to do. It's a lot of pieces, but it's actually going to come together pretty quickly. So why don't we get started? The first thing I need to do is prepare the strap, and so I'm going to be doing a double-sided strap. So you can see I have this fabric that I cut out. I just cut the full length of the yard of fabric. This again is waterproof cotton from the Empurrium. Such a fun print. And then I'm going to be using this webbing here from Georgia Girl Stitches as the other side, the back side. They're both 1 inch, so I mean, this might fold up to be a little narrower. I'm not super concerned, but so you can see I have already put tape on the fabric, and so I'll just start pulling it back. And I will admit where I'm doing this so that I can record it. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to shake that. Is not where I would normally do this, but still figuring out the setup for my sewing space. So it's just hanging off the edge of the table. You just can't see it. Well, you can't see anything at the moment. There we go. There it is. And so I'm going to have it wrap up. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So all you do is perhaps you can see, and sorry, it's going to be at an angle, but I've got to get it to work for me. I put a line down the middle. Normally when you're making a strap, I mean, depending on whether you're doing a 2-fold or 4-fold, you'll have to determine, it will determine, sorry, how far or how close you need to get to the line you've drawn down the middle, if you have one there. If you're doing a 2-fold, like I am now, because it's going to be double-sided, I can fold right up to that line because I don't need to fold it again. I don't have to be worried about fabric sort of folding in on each other. If it's a 4-fold, like this one, so you can see right here, that's the fold. When I did it, I had to ensure that I left a little gap right here on that middle part so that I could fold it nicely. If I folded it straight up to the line, it would have folded in on itself and would have just been cumbersome and awkward and had a bulge. So just something to keep in mind. But as I said, I don't need to worry about that here. So I'm going to just fold along. Well, you know what? Let me quickly grab my seam roller. I'll roll it across my table. I will, as I go along, I'm not going to do it now because I still have half of this is sticky, but I'll go along, and so I can start doing some here. I'm not good at doing like both sides at once. I know some people can do that where they can bring them both together at one time. I can't do that. So what I do is I'll start, and then I'm going to come through with my seam roller to just really kind of flatten it out. And so that's what I'm going to do for the whole strap here. Okay, now I need to put some double-sided tape on this so I could connect, or not connect it, well, yeah, connect it to the webbing. And so I'm going to put it on this with a waterproof cotton side. I'm just using 1/2 inch. My machine doesn't really have an issue. I mean, hopefully I'll be out of the seam allowance anyway, but even, let's say I decided to do 4 rows of stitches instead of 2, just to have it be kind of decorative, I'm not concerned about sewing over this. My machine can do it, but just keep in mind what your machine can do. Okay, so now we don't need, no, I will still use the seam roller. Don't need the tape. I'm going to take off just a little bit at a time so it doesn't go all over the place. I'm going to start putting our webbing on. And so I'm just going to do my best to align this on here as neatly and straightly as I can. I sort of feel the sides. You can see me going like this. That's to try to ensure that it's straight on there. As straight as I can get it, at least. Okay, there we go. So as I said, here's our strap ready to sew. I'm doing it at a little bit of an angle, as I mentioned, so I'm going to go through off camera and just ensure it's like I can see right here that it's clearly not straight, and you can see it's there. So I just want to make sure, looking straight down, that everything is aligned the way it should be. I'm going to then go over it one more time with my seam roller to just make sure it's there, and then we'll go over to the sewing machine. I realized before we actually go over the sewing machine, there's more prep work we can do. Because I have a small sewing space, I tend to try to do as much as I can at my cutting table so that I can just have everything in a pile ready to go to sew at the machine. You know, I sew on a cylinder arm. I don't have a flatbed version. I don't have a table right next to me the way you might with a flatbed. So it really is much easier for me if I have all of this done ahead of time. So let's just get through some of this. It'll go pretty quickly. First will be our strap connector right here. I'm using the same vinyl that I'm using for the exterior. I did decide to put some Decavil light there just for some added strength. And then I drew a line down the middle. And so all I need to do for this is fold this to the middle. So it's going to be a 2-fold. So I can fold it right up to the line that I drew. I tend to make my strap connectors longer than they need to be. It's just me. I like to have extra material to work with, especially if I'm doing hidden strap connectors. And that looks bad. So these are longer than you would need, but that's just me. I like to do that. You can make them whatever length you want. Let's press that down here. It'll be a minute before, it won't be very long before we start sewing, so I'm not concerned about that coming up before then, but just in case. Okay, strap connector is done. Next thing I have here in my pile will be the pieces for that back. So again, on the purse, here, this is essentially this piece we're talking about. If you pretend that this floral fabric isn't there. Actually, one sec. Hold on. Here is what it would normally look like. Switch it out. There we go. That's what it would look like. You can sort of see. It's one panel right here on which you would put your cattail if you're going to do that, as I did on this is the original version that I did at the Sew Whatever studio workshop for the bag. And so I think this will help you get an idea a little bit better than with the other one. We're going to have on the panel, it's going to notch out right here, and that's where the pocket will be. So that's what we're doing right now. I move these out of the way. And so I've already prepared that piece. I've cut it out. As I mentioned, it's the same size as the back panel from the one with Mormino. So I used that to cut it out. Put some tape there. I cut another piece, which probably should be a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And I'm going to align it so that it fits in that curve up to the sides. Just bring this down a little here. There I go. I mean, so this is my own addition. There. And so what I will do is, there we go. We will sew that. So we're going to sew that. I'll probably do that at like a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, especially since I already have a magnet there. But this is my own addition, not part of the pattern, just a way to have a nice little pocket on the back. So that's now prepped. Here we have, make sure, yeah, so this is the waterproof canvas light. I can tell that this is the right side, even though it's a little, yeah, it's hard to tell the difference. You might be able to see there's a slight color variation. This side is a little darker. It also is, I don't know, flatter, matter. This has a little bit of softness to it. And if I look carefully, there's a little bit of a white mark there. So that tells me this is the back. I've already marked my centers as well, just so I can see where things go. And here, I just decided, well, based on the size of the pocket, or the panel there, what size would I like my pocket to be? And I just measured. I decided I didn't feel like sewing the whole thing up, so I added on a little extra on the sides so that I could fold this in half. So you can see it's essentially creating a finished seam on the side. There we go. And do the same on this side. There. I'm going to just, seam roller's your friend. It's just a little pocket, but as you can see, we don't have a lot of space right here, so it'll be nice. Let's see, this is the front right here, because I can see the teacup. And so I have another piece of vinyl here, wider than it needs to be, but that's fine. Just taking one side off first. I'm going to put this up on it almost up to the line. I drew a line basically in the sort of down the middle. Let's see. I'm going to do my best to line it. There we go. Now fold. Oh, I forgot. I have a tag. I wanted to put this right here. So what I did with this is my cute little So Cute tag. I actually, it's a little hard to tell, I put some tape in between right there and to keep it together, and then I'm going to put a piece on the back so it goes here. I could also put it under, whoops, where is it? Now I have to decide. I think I am going to still put it on here. I could put it underneath this, but the fact is this pocket is going to be against me. I mean, if I'm wearing my bag, we tend to put our zipper pockets to the back, and so that's going to be against me, and I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to see it. I want to be able to see it, so I'm going to put it in a place where I'm likely, when I look into the bag, to see my little tag. And so I'll put this right here, and I'll fold it down. And my tag's a little off, but it's okay. I'm just gonna, again, just using the seam roller for this because it won't be that long, as I said, before we sew, but I just really want to ensure it sort of stays down. I'm not going to worry about the ends of that right now. I'm going to trim them off after, but then when I'm done, I'll put that on here. I will likely put a little bit of tape around the edges when I do that, just to help hold it in place. And I may rivet right there as well. We'll see what I decide. It's not like it's a big pocket, so I don't know that there'll be a lot of stress. Often I'll put a rivet there if I think there'll be stress. But okay, that one's done. The next thing we're going to prep will be this pocket. And good, I've got my centers all here too. So for this one, I'm going to put, let's first prep this. Prep a couple things here. I'm going to just put 1/4 inch double-sided tape. This is how I do this, on the back of the overlay. And then, yep, that's right size. Side. Again, this will be the way you go. You can always tell here's my teacup. And so I think, let's see, where do I want to put it? Because I have a smaller panel that I'm working with. So again, I cut a piece off because we're going to have a recessed zipper panel in here. So the dimensions that are in, or not the dimensions, but how far away you want your zipper panel from the top will be different now than what's in the pattern because of this. So I'm just taking a ruler. Let's see, how far down do I want to maybe go? I'm just eyeballing it first. And I'm doing it upside down so I can sort of see. Is that too low? Maybe, but I also have to keep in mind I have to sew on the zipper panel. Maybe we will just do an inch down. I think that should be fine. Inch, because I'm going to do a 1/4 inch for the recessed zipper panel. Yeah, that's fine. I would actually like the panel to be slightly over it, so for some security. Now, I mentioned that I was going to say how I make mine. Most patterns that use an overlay will have an overlay pattern piece for it, and that's great. I tend to, let me pull out, we'll pretend, here we go, got this. I use, most of the time, unless it's a teeny purse, my sort of zipper template here. So this is a Mormino zipper template. Oops, helps if you can read it. There we go. I use this. I think it's a great size. You can see, I just use that. I will use it to trace around, and I'll cut around the edges, and then I just trace on the interior, which is what you would be doing there anyway. I like the size. It makes it super easy. I just have a bunch of them hanging. Well, this one and a larger one. That's what I do. And then when I'm ready to cut this out, what I do is I will take a ruler, and I always put it so that I'm cutting sort of on the inside here. If for any reason I go off a smidgen, it's going to be in this center section that I'm cutting out anyway. So I will align it like this, and then, there we go. Do most of it. So I'm not starting at the very end, sort of a little bit from the edges and ending a little bit from the edge. And then I just take a little pair of Kai scissors. They don't have to be Kai. Take a little pair of scissors, and I cut and I finish. I try to make sure I start and stop close enough that I don't have to do more than one cut like that. I don't want to have to cut multiple times. And that's all I do. I just find that, there we go. I find that super easy. I'll have to save that for another one. Anyway, so I have my piece here. I think I'm going to put this, as I said, and the reason I like this as well is I know that, as you can see, it is, if we measure this, this is a 9-inch. There we go. It's a 9-inch template, and so that way I know I don't have to worry. I will always know it's 9 inches. So if I need to center something, I could put my ruler on the 4.5 mark, and whoops, and that's exactly where, if I want to center it, make sure it's not upside down, I can go with one edge, go to the other. Try to make sure it's nicely aligned. There we go. So that's how we do that. So this one is ready to sew now as well. Next thing we need to do will be not that ruler, or not ruler, zipper, this one. So what we're going to do is take our 2 pieces. I just cut them to whatever size I wanted for my pockets. There's no, sorry, didn't mean to bump that. No pocket, no size in particular. I just thought this would be a good size. There are sizes in the pattern. Let me rephrase that. There are certainly sizes in the pattern. There definitely are. But because I cut this, I needed to decide based on the new height of my panel, what size would I like my pocket to be. So because we're doing a panel as well, an overlay, I'm sorry, what we're going to do is sew our zipper here, and then we're going to sew it to the other side. We're going to sew it to the right sides. So let's get this together first. I like to put my tape on material. tape it down. Now there are different ways that you can do these types of overlay pockets. I'm going to do it sort of the easy way. And so you'll see there's a way that has it looking very nice and clean on the inside. It really does produce a pretty look. I'm going to do this probably the faster way. Since we're part of the marathon, I want to show how you can do this in a timely manner. You get the other side. I'll do the other side when I'm ready. So what I'll do is I'll sew down this one edge, and then I'll top stitch it so it's flat, and then I'll do the same on this side. Once that's done, I'll cut that out, put it in, boom, pocket done. The last thing we need to prep will be our zipper for our overlay. So I've already marked these, the panels, and so you can see it's a little jagged there, but don't worry, that'll go into the seam allowance. Oops, there we go, sorry. The lining pieces are wider. I sort of took some of the advice that Lauren had with panels that she's done and made my lining a little wider, because I did find usually when you're using a waterproof canvas, something thicker than the like waterproof canvas light, but when you sew them together, pretend we're sewing them together right here, you go right sides together, and then you turn them and you have that zipper in between. It's folding on itself, and the lining sometimes, if it's really thick, it just doesn't flatten out as nicely, and it shrinks up a little compared to the size of the main panel. So if you cut it a little wider, you can just fold it over and then trim it when you're done. So I've done that. So what we'll want to do, and I marked where I want these. Now for these, again, this is not part of the pattern. I made these, I think it was 9 3/4. Yeah, they're about 9 3/4 inches long. I found this to be a great size. But let me pull it out so I can show you. The rule of thumb, and I don't know if it really is a rule of thumb. There we go. So you can see here, it fits it perfectly. And it's probably what you might even think is a smidgen tight. There we go. But if this is a travel purse, that's what you'd want. You want it to be a little tighter. It's easy to still get in and out of for yourself. Don't worry. I swear though, when I was learning all of this, learning to sew, that I heard someone say sort of the rule of thumb, if you're going to add a zipper panel to something, we'll just use this as the example, is measure across and then subtract about 2 inches from each side, and that'll get you your piece. I tend to do that. I do 1.5 inches to 2 inches. A lot of it will depend on how you're sewing your bag together. Do you have side panels to it? Are you just sewing the front and back panels together? A lot of that will determine whether that is the right size or not, but that's typically what I've done. So I made these 9 3/4, and I have found that they are a good size. You can sort of see here that that'll be nice. I mean, don't forget, this is going to come in a little bit. Once we put the sides on, it's going to shrink up a little. You don't want it too far over, or you won't be able to use it. But, okay. So I'm just folding up to the lines that I marked. Those are just 1 inch marks. So that it folds in by 1/2 inch. Kind of standard for a zipper panel. The next thing I will do is I'm going to put tape on all of these so that I can see which side I want to be on the interior. So for instance, so this is where you sometimes have to decide when you're looking at your panel. Do you want to look down and see everything facing the same direction? Do you want things facing each other? I want them, I think, to go like this. So when I look down into it, it'll look like that. So I'm going to put 1/8 inch double-sided tape on what will be the interior parts of my panel pieces here. So those are ready. And the next thing we need to do is prep the zipper. Okay. I like to do this. I can probably trim that a smidgen. You don't see me using my Kai here. Actually, that's good. I like to do the kind of fold, the bend, pull it out and burn it in place, and we'll see if I can, method to square these off. I mean, basically what you're trying to do is square these off, your ends off. Sorry, let's get this back in here. Square it off so your zipper doesn't go off. And so there are lots of different ways that people show to do it. I know Shannon from Knotted Threads Co. has a really great, methodical way. I tend to just, I don't know how well you can see what I'm doing. I take the edge of it here and I just fold it back until I see this kind of a line like that. That's all I do. So hopefully you can see that's lining up there like that. That's all I do. Now, if I'm going to try burning it, let's give it a try. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. I'm going to put a clip there, help hold it. And I usually will admit I have to do this a couple of times myself to see. You can see I shouldn't have let go so quickly. Let's try this again. I needed to move the clip in a little bit. It was too close to the edge for me to be able to do it. Okay, there we go. The other thing you can do, I'll try doing it on the other side. You could always use some tape. There, that's better. I just needed to clip it from that side. What I try to do is make sure that I'm melting it all around. So sometimes I'll turn it over like this from the back. So here, let's start it here. It can be hot, so just careful. It can be. It's fire. It will be hot. See, and you can start to see it's melting together there. And so I might just do one more. Sometimes if these don't work, just sort of shake them upside down. Or, you know, get a new one. Okay, I'm going to leave that clip on it right there. I always have an easier time on the right side than the left side too, gotta say, it's just me. Okay, so let's, as I said, I'm just folding it until it kind of makes its own little 90-degree angle there. I'm going to put a clip on this side to hold it, and then we'll melt to this side. And then I'll sort of take a look at them. See, I can see that one is going up a little. It's not as, this one's not as straight as I'd like it to be. So I'll probably pull it down a little. There we go. And try to straighten that out because I get picky. There we go. That looks better. So as long as they're even. But there we go. I think we've got everything set now. So we can start sewing. Yay. I have a full bobbin, so I'm going to start with things like my strap. Just have to turn up my hump jumper and bring down the speed because it was really quite fast. Okay, whoops. So I'm just going to sew down both sides of my strap. I will put strap ends on this later. I don't think I'm going to make the strap right now because I'm doing it a little differently than what I would normally do. So I'm just going to sew these in place so that the two pieces are together. It's not perfect, but it's okay. I can live with it. I think someone would have to really be looking at this and say, oh, look at your stitches. They're not perfectly straight all the way down. It's fine. So this will be good until we're ready to make the strap. I just wanted to get that attached so they don't come apart. Let's also do our strap connector. That's done. Not too concerned about how clean the ends are with the threads because it's going to go into the hidden strap connector anyway, or the slot for it. So got that done. So I'm going to put that aside. So I think now what we're going to do is sort of sew together all of these little extra pieces. Some of them are everything that's I'm changing up. Okay, so the first thing that Brittany has you work on when you're doing this will be that zipper flap. And so I'm going to do that right now as well. I think it just makes sense. So we'll do some of the part that's certainly easiest. So we've got here, this is, let me bring down my stitch length. There we go. This will be the part, I think, as I mentioned before, here's the inside, because that is the inside of the flap. And so this is actually, if you think of it this way, this is the inside of the bag here. So this is the back. So we're just going to sew these two together first per the seam allowance in the pattern. I think I should be okay. So top stitching. I'm going to we're going to top stitch on the bottom panel. You can decide. I mean, if you're making with the cat ears, you have to do it the way it says in the pattern. Because I don't have the cat ears, I could decide, do I want it on the top? Do I want it on the bottom? Do I want to butterfly? I'm just going to do it on the bottom. I mean, I think that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So I've got that. Just going to top stitch there, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. This color is so pretty. So this is Muted Mauve from Mormino. Really pretty vinyl. Okay, so that's done. I mean, that piece is done. Woohoo! We can set that aside for now. Next, we need to work on, and this is where we're going to change things up a little bit. We need to work on the sneaky pocket that I'm adding to the back. So again, this is not part of the pattern, but I've got it. So this piece right here, the vinyl, this was, and still is, I guess, the width and the height of the panel piece that you need to do the back part of that zipper flap pocket. But again, I cut it out with the one from Mormino piece there. I'm going to, actually, you know what I might do? And this will be a tap, or sort of a hint for people. I want to ensure that this is a really nice curve. And I don't feel like me. Sometimes when I start stitching, I'm just going to do 1/4 of an inch and totally making this up as I go along. I'll get this first corner looking really nice. And then when I get to the other one, it's not as symmetrical. I mean, they're a little off. And that's just me being picky. But I really would like it to be as close to perfect as possible. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go and draw a line. I like to do that. I like to draw lines when I'm dealing with curves, just to ensure that the curves on all around sort of match. So be right back. Okay, so I went in. All I did was I knew I wanted to do 1/4 of an inch, so I did 1/4 of an inch line on the sides, and then I took my template piece and I put it over that so I could put in the corners. So now I can sew directly on that line, and I will know that it should be a nice even curve all the way around. Now, one thing you might have noticed, I mean, I know I sped it up, but on this curve, pretty close, I was a little off there, but I reduced the stitch length. I probably should have done it there. It just helps to have a tighter curve if it has a smaller stitch length. You know what, I was going to cut into it with my pinking shears, but that's pretty small. I mean, it's only 1/4 inch. Those pinking shears are just gonna tear to bits. So I am just going to cut some snips. Actually, I might just do some of these. Let's see how we do. So I'm just going to, when you've got something like this, I tend to start in the middle. I know everyone probably has their own way. I start in the middle and kind of roll it flat, and then I work my way to the edges. That curve can be tricky to turn, so just kind of, there we go. I find once you get that curve turned, the rest of it kind of wants to turn on its own. Now you do have to, you've got the two top pieces here. I do want to align it. You can see I probably should have made that a little wider, but that's okay. I want to align the lining piece with the top of the exterior piece, just to ensure when I top stitch that it's all straight. good. I tried to ensure that it was folded down so you don't see it peeking up. If it peeks up, it's fine. Not the end of the world. But here we have the piece in the back. So now I'm going to top stitch that 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then we will make our pocket. I think that looks pretty good. Let's cut some of these threads. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think I have the teeniest bit poking out right there, but nothing critical. Looks nice. Okay, so now what we need to do is take sort of the pocket backing. Like this, as you can see. I wanted this to be as discreet as possible. Again, it's supposed to be a sneaky little pocket. And so that's why I have it as the same material as the exterior. You could do whatever you want there. I'm going to, again, I did not give myself a lot of space here. We will see how well this works. I'm going to line this up with the edges of my pocket. So you can see, again, really tight there. But that's okay. I don't need a lot of space. Just need enough to sew it into place. That's all I need. I think I made it a little bit wider. Well, the pocket will have, this piece right here will have sort of tightened up a little bit since I did that. I sewed it on there, so it's shrunk a smidgen on the sides. The main thing is I want to ensure it's lined up nicely here because this is going to create our back panel. Okay. So now, as you can see, I mean, it pretty much is about the same size. That's a smidgen longer. You could go off of the, if you have the one with more, could totally go along with that pattern to see what you do. You probably would have more to deal with back here than I do, but that's okay. I'm just gonna wing it to decide how big do I want it. I have to keep in mind what the seam allowances will be when I sew this whole thing together. So I probably will just go a little bit from the edge. I mean, it's not like I can go in much more than that. But you're gonna put this face down, so as you can see, and I'm basically gonna fold this back and just sew along the edge. So I'm gonna sew really close to the edge of, let me show you right here, hold on. Right here, right close to the edge, right there. To get it as tight as I can, just going straight down. You can fold your side back like this if you want. In fact, I could go like this. You can see, so that it's kind of out of my way. Maybe I'll do that on this side too. It's holding everything together, but it's also keeping that out of the way. And I could go straight down to the bottom. I mean, that's enough here to account for seam allowances when we're done. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. Okay. So I ended up making that about 3/8 of an inch all the way around. So if you want to do something like that, that seemed to work well. And even with the small pieces that I cut from my pocket, that worked well. So now you can see we have this pocket right here, sewn up all the way around, but it's magnetic. We will in a moment, I guess I could do it now. We want to sew this all flat, so with one piece, but I think until I finish this, I'm going to wait. We need to put the magnet on the other side. Now because, things could shift, seam allowances can be a little off. I didn't mark anything here. I mean, there's no pattern piece, so it's not like I could. I have to kind of wing it as I go. Let me get my silver marking pen. And so what I'm going to do with my silver marking pen is kind of fold out the magnetic snap. I'm going to just draw on the nub. So this is the female end. Usually whatever is like the outer part of your magnetic snap. So if it's a pocket, it's the outer part of the pocket. If it's the flap, it's the outer part of the flap. That will be, I'm sorry, this is the male end. I'm sorry. It'll be the male end, and the female end will be whatever is on the main part of your bag. So that's probably, I put a lot there. That's more than enough. And you're basically just coloring that so that I can straighten this out, press down, kind of hard right there. And now I can see, I don't know how well if you can see, there's a mark right there where my where the magnetic snap should go. So I'm going to get that going. Let me see. Where? Be right back. Let me get a washer. Okay. I keep a little box of these. I actually take all of the washers out of my magnetic snaps when I buy them, and I just put them in a little thingy here, and that way I've got them when I need them. So I've got my dot on here. I know it might be hard to see. I've got my dot from the marking of the male portion. I'm going to put my washer over that. There's a center part to your washer. I'm going to line that up with the dot. So you can see that. Yeah, I think you should be able to see that. And now I am going to, actually, before I do that, again, this is vinyl. It's unlikely that it's going to rip or tear or anything like that, but I want it to be a little stronger. And so I didn't adhere any Decavil, which, because I didn't think about it till later. I've got some more of this, though, adhesive fleece from Fabric Therapy, and I'm going to put it, looks like it's right, just try to figuring out where it is. I think it's about right there. That'll just be a good way to help it stay a little stronger. And so now I'm going to take my seam ripper, and the way I do it is don't tear your stuff that you've done. I put the edge of my seam ripper in one of those lines, and I just sort of leave it. I know it might be hard to see. I kind of keep it down, and I lift the material up into it. I just find it safer for me to do it that way, rather than me pushing the seam ripper down. And then I try to, because it's a scalpel. I mean, and then I try to put it in and have my fingers as far away as possible. Okay, so now I've got my female portion. Oh, look, there's the other washer. And I can put that in. Hopefully yep, I did get it. I put those in the right spot. Okay. Put it through. Hopefully I cut it big enough. Yeah, I did. I just have to get it there. There's one, there's two, there, and washer. I like to fold mine out. You can fold them in if you want. I like to fold them out. I just feel it ends up being a little flatter. I have a screwdriver here that I could use as well to help fold it, but this is what was handy. Just don't cut yourself. And then I did cut one more piece like this to just cover it, just so that you don't feel it. Not that you would, very likely, and it's probably not going to rub and cause any issues, but yeah. There, we've got our pocket. So there, we've got that. I'm just going to stitch across these two ends right here just so they lay flat. Okay, so now that that is done, got that. I think that looks good. It looks pretty straight, hopefully straight enough. We're going to take our other piece right here. So this is our main panel. So when it's closed, it'll look like that, as you can see. We're going to go right sides together and clip these in place. And I haven't done this yet, so we're going to see. I just have a feeling this should work well for this fun little pocket. Now, it did, as I would expect. As you can see, it's now currently a little narrower than this. That's okay. Just, it's because of when I sewed it together. It just, you know, it sort of shrinks in on the sides a little bit. So I'm going to clip this. Let me see. Let's get a real pair of scissors. Find my centers. So what I can do is just align it that way. Okay. And it'll be fine on the sides. And in fact, I probably can stretch it even a little bit. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, I can stretch it. I mean, there's a little give to this vinyl. So let's try to stretch it out a little, just so it fits it perfectly. There we go. Got it. So yeah, just did a little stretching, but even if I hadn't, it was maybe 1/8 of an inch, between a 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch on each side. That would have been caught up in the seam allowance, so it's fine. So now I'm going to sew across there per the seam allowance in the pattern. Right. I have to tell you, I was thinking, did I want to maybe put some fleece on this to make it a little softer? I'm going to top stitch it first and then we'll decide. Don't need to. I mean, this is waterproof cotton, so it doesn't actually need to be interfaced, but that might feel really nice. I mean, so here, let's get these two together. There will be a pocket on the inside, so that will add to the feeling in there. But you can sort of get this impression. It's going to go like this. It might feel nice to have a little fleece there. Let's top stitch first and then we'll see. Okay, so like before, we're going to top stitch on the bottom, so we want our seams going down. Okay, so this is one thing. Should have thought about this first. This is going to be thick right here. So what I might do is, it's pretty far in. Just thinking, it's thick right here because that's where the whole pocket comes together. And so if you do this and you're not doing the ears, so here's a tip. And I'm doing this kind of on the fly right now. If you're making this and you're not going to be doing the ears, you're doing this, the little pocket, top stitch on the top. It's going to be much easier to have your seam going up. I know I did the other one already going down, I think, even though that'll be on the inside. I'm going to have this one top stitching here. It's going to be so much easier. So that's a note. If you're going to do this, top stitch these two pieces on the top if you want them to be the same, because this back one really will need it because of all the pocket pieces there. Okay. Yeah, it's going to need it there. One thing when you're cutting out your fabric for this flap, keep in mind, so you can see it's if you've got directional fabric, when you've got the piece that's going to be facing out, when you cut it out, it should be, make sure that you're using your pattern piece like this and your pattern is facing up. But if it's directional, when it goes up, it's got to go the other way. So just make sure you've got those mirrored so your inside doesn't end up being upside down. That looks good. Still debating. Do I want fleece? Do I want fleece? Okay, give me a minute to think about it. Okay, I pulled out my purse that's like this. Waterproof cotton, vinyl here. And then inside is just waterproof canvas. Now this is regular OtterTex waterproof canvas, so it's a little thicker, but I'm okay with this. I kind of like it without the fleece there. It's fine. So we're going to do it without the fleece. Okay. So that means our next step is to mark our centers on all of these because we're now going to do our zipper. Ooh, which means I have to sew the zipper ends on. But let's just cut these first. Oh, I did that one already. So let's make sure it's still good. Hold on. Let's make sure. Yep, that's good. And you want to cut them also on your lining pieces. So that's what these two long ones are. I did that already. Let's now do our zipper. Where is that in here? Hold on. Okay. So here's our zipper. We just want to stitch across 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I made my tape longer just to make it easy to have a little something to lead into it for each of those. Let me just cut off my threads and trim down my tabs. Ah, that one's a little crooked. That piece went flying. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I want to find the center. You could snip it and then burn down the edge. I've just gotten used to folding it in half. Make sure it stays in half. You can always clip it if you need to. It's like, yeah. There we go. And then I'm going to take my pen, my silver marking pen that I still have here, and just in the middle on both sides. I like to mark it on both. Now because I put two zippers on here, when we sew this together, we don't have to worry about closing to the left or closing to the right. If you use one zipper, then clearly you might want to think about that. And let's talk about that. Let me grab my purse. Okay, closing to the left and closing to the right. We're going to talk about this a little earlier probably than I had planned. I've got 2 zipper pulls here. As I said, it doesn't matter when you have 2, but the way we're going to be making this bag for travel assumes that you're going to carry it on either, obviously, your left or right side. It's a crossbody, and that you will want the zipper, when it's closed, to be closest to you. So if you're carrying it on the side like that, you've got it so that, for me, I carry it on my left side, on my right shoulder over to my left side. So this is the end that's closest to me. And so I would want, if I had 1 zipper, I would want everything closing to the left. That's, if you think about it, the way we make it, it closes to the left. Well, that's how it's on my left side. I would want it. If you are going to be carrying this on your right side, you will want it likely closing in the other direction, because think about this. If this is on your right side, it's really like this. This is the side that is going to be closest to you, towards the front. This side over here will be towards the back. And someone could reach in, if everything is closing the way we normally make it, closing to the left, they could reach in here. I mean, I can feel my zipper pull right here because of how it's closing. So if I had my bag just pushed a little bit behind me, they could reach in and they could get in there. So it's something to consider if you're going to have 1 zipper pull. If you're carrying it on your left and you're making this for travel, so you're thinking about that very specifically. Carry it on your left, zippers can close to your left. Carry it on your right, have your zippers close to the right. So just something to consider. But no worries when you've got 2. Okay, so I've got the 2 marked here. We're now going to put double-sided tape on all of our pieces here. And in fact, I'm going to go over to my cutting table. I will be right back, and because it's just easier for me to do it there, and we will then start putting this pocket together. Okay, we are set. So I've got it all in place. Let me show you what I did. I'll pull up the other one. I just put tape across the top of the curves on the right side of both of the pieces, and I aligned the zipper in the center. Let me figure out also where my zipper pulls are. They're right here. So when we sew this, we're going to sew from one edge to the other. And one thing I can even see it happening, and Brittany mentions it in one of her tutorials, one of the tabs, or both of the tabs, not just one, she said it's really going to want to poke out. You really want to ensure that when you're sewing this down, it stays down. So I'll do my best to keep that down. So when you're sewing this together, it shouldn't be that big a deal with this front half. It should be fairly easy. Sorry, just making sure it's all good. Fairly easy to sew it and top stitch it. It can be a little trickier when we do the back side. So we're doing the front side first because it's going to be prettier. But we're going to sew from edge to edge. And then when we're ready to top stitch, we're going to top stitch just within the zipper tabs. So that's coming up. Okay, so let's get this together. So I'm sewing it per the seam allowance in the pattern. So now we're going to flip it. I changed my stitch length up to a 5 for top stitching. And I sort of pull it up. I pull up on my zipper tape to get it nice and taut enough. And I want to really kind of fold down. So we've got a nice crease here at the edge, a nice edge. You don't want that lining to kind of creep up on you. Now, I know some people, when they top stitch it, they may open this up. We'll see. If they want to, they might open up the zipper. I'm going to try it with it closed first. I usually have luck there. The main thing is you want to ensure, as I said, that your lining stays nice and straight. It's going to want to creep up because it's curved. So just feel it. Go slowly, go carefully. Remember, we're only going from tab to tab. We're not going straight to the edge. Okay? That's the other thing too. But I'm really trying. You could, if you're using, I guess I could technically press this if I wanted to, because I'm not using vinyl right here. I am on the other, but I'm just going to press it with my fingers. I'm not going to press it with an iron. Okay. 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Okay, we're going to do the same for the other side. And this is where it can get a little trickier because, you can already see how it's curving. And it's kind of curving in. It'll be okay when you're sewing it. It could be a little trickier when you are doing the top stitching. But like before, let me grab this. I'm going to take first my exterior piece. I mean, this is still just a zipper sandwich, so that's the other thing to keep in mind too. I'm going to, I have my center right here. I have my center on my tape. I'm going to align those, press it in place, and just kind of work my way around the edge, taping it down. Same here. And this is where it's really wanting, it doesn't want to curve on this tab, but just make it curve. There we go. So I've got that in place. Let's get the lining. You could base that down if you feel like, okay, I'm concerned about doing both of these at once. You could base that down, but I feel comfortable with this. So I'm gonna then line my center with the center mark on the zipper. And work my way down. You can see that little bit popping up. Let me see if I can get it to come down a little bit. Get it down and then put a clip there. You'll just have it be a neater zipper tape there, but you can get it to really stay down. You can really see how it wants to come up here. So bring it down, kind of force it to curve down. Hold on, I'm going to clip it first to just the exterior. Now bring it in. Okay. And in fact, I'm going to probably put a few clips in here. I think it just, with the curve, it's going to help it. Even though there's tape, it's sort of fighting it. So, okay, like before, let me bring my stitch length down to, I usually use between a 4 and 4.5. I'm going to sew per the seam allowance in the pattern. Hold on. This came out. There we go. Now I can do it. It's poking up just a smidgen there, but that's fine. Wasn't like what it was before. Now, change my stitch length back. Flip this over. There we go. Helps if I can see it. And so as you can see, it's a little cumbersome there. Oops, it doesn't want to. You can see, especially on the inside, it's like, what are you doing? So this is probably where I would recommend unzipping it a little bit. There we go. To help flatten that out, you can pull right here then. Pull on your zipper tape to try to get it nicely aligned. Finger press it, fold it, massage it into place. There, that's feeling good. This is also going to be on the inside, so don't stress too much about it. Okay. So now, and this one I think I am going to leave open because I need to be able to keep it kind of taut. Like before, we're just going from tab to tab, 1/8 of an inch. Let me see, is that? I just want to make sure everything looks good there. Yeah. Okay, so tab to tab. As I mentioned, all I did was I opened it up. I had my zipper completely open so that I could pull from the back and ensure that nothing was kind of creeping up back here, and worked really well. Let's take a look and see how we look. Close this. There we go. So, and this is when it folds over, it'll be like this. How cute is that? Oh my gosh, I love this print. And I like how it looks with this muted mauve. Okay, so now we need to sew these together. I mean, this is essentially, think of it as a zipper pouch. We need to do lining together and the exterior together. Now it's going to be a little weird here because of the curve, but it'll work. What I would say is first kind of clip together. Yeah, there we go. Your sides. You want to ensure that your sides are aligned. And then also ensure that you've got your two pieces here. You can see you've got this piece and this piece. You know, this is actually going to kind of work nicely as I sew this together. They kind of nest a little bit there. So maybe the fact that I did one going top stitching on the back and one top stitching on the top actually might work well. Might work to my favor. And so I'm just going to clip down to the bottom as well. The same on this side. Get my sides together the way I normally would. I want those to align properly. And then I want to do the two seams here, make sure those are aligned. And in fact, those are a little off on this one. There we go. That's better. Get my bottoms lined up. And I do have my zipper partially open. The way you would with any zipper pocket. Oops. Oh, it's that pocket there. That's like, what was that? It's the pocket. I'll make sure these are lined up nicely. There we go. Oops. There we go. That's better. Okay. And then we want to line up, obviously clip the lining as well. So now we're going to sew per the seam allowance in the pattern. We're not going to sew the base of the lining closed because we'll turn it through there, but we'll catch that when we sew the whole purse together, so we don't have to worry about that. We can keep it completely open. So we're going to come here per the seam allowance for the lining. We'll then taper and it'll do the exterior seam allowance. We will go all the way across the bottom and just clip those. So we'll close the bottom of the exterior and come back up. Okay. I think because I have this pocket here, it just keeps throwing me off. I'm going to have that be on this side up. It slipped a little on me right here, which is odd, but it's okay. We're good. So now you can, if you'd like, cut down a little bit on the sides. We don't really need to on the exterior. There's not much there. Could certainly cut the corners just a little bit so that turns nicely. There we go. But you know what? Actually, wait. I should not have sewn that because we're going to sew that directly in. Okay, total idiot here. It's the bottom. I don't know what I was thinking about leaving the lining open here. So scratch what I said here. We actually want to close the lining here and leave it open on the exterior because we're going to have that open. It's going to sew right into the base of the bag when we put on the gusset. So I just flipped it. As I said, oh, this will be caught when we sew the whole bag together. No, the other side will be caught. So I'm going to just sew on, go across here. Okay. And then take my seam ripper and pull out the base. Actually, what I'm going to do first is just sew up the edges so that they don't come loose. So let's just do that. and it's all fine. Everything's fine. Okay. So let's pull out those stitches and then we'll keep going. Okay, pulled the stitches because obviously that's a dope. I did trim down the seam allowance on the lining. I'm not concerned about it on the exterior because it's not a super wide seam allowance, but you know, have a little less there. And you want the lining to lay nicely inside. So I'm opening up the zipper entirely. I'm going to pull this through. I'm going to turn this out. Corners, still have normal corners to poke out. And pull this back in. We want to just flatten that out in there. And so what you can do is put your hand in here, but you can also put your hand in this way to really help ensure that it's laying nice and flat in the side seams. And so kind of going like this to get it nice and flat. I'm going to do that as well here. You can see, because we have this open, I can get my hand between the layers here, so I can sort of go in. There we go. So my hand is right here. You can see it in here. It's dark. It's dark. But I'm going here and I'm pressing my seams up. So hopefully you can see my fingers right there. You could also take a chopstick or something like that if you want. In fact, I might. I'm going to use the wider end to really just sort of help it form that nice mark that we want. Nice crisp edge. Yeah, that's nice. Come on this side. Do the same. Sort of moving my lining out of the way to do that first. Yeah, everything looks good. Looks like everything lined up well. This one might have been just a smidgen off, but so small, can't even tell. And now I'm going to go back at my lining. That's it. Do it again from the inside if you want. And just kind of have it feel. I'm feeling it in there to make sure it feels as flat as possible. There. And so now what you can do, if you want to sort of help train this to be on those edges, let me get some of my big clips. Okay, you can see I've got here's my McCallie that I made during the last marathon. I'm using this at the moment for some of my big clips. I call these Beth clips. Beth, you didn't know this. I call these Beth clips because you're the first person I saw using these. And so Beth from So Country, she uses these a lot. I'm like, those are cool. So these are my Beth clips. So I'm going to feel inside. I'm kind of feeling there. I just want to get that in place. We're not going to top stitch anything here. We just want it to train sort of here. At least for the top part, we're training it. The bottom part, we will be sewing down. So in essence, we will sort of, I guess, be top stitching it, but we still want to help train it in place. There, grab some of these. What's nice with these is they have a silicone tip, and so they're not going to leave marks the way the glitter clips might. I mean, the glitter clip marks, I know people worry about that. The glitter clip marks will also come out. You can use a little heat, not like don't iron on your vinyl, but you could use a little heat or steam to try to get those out. So it'll work, but if you want to do something that maybe is from the start going to have less. Now, part of the reason I used vinyl here as well is when we sew this down, we want to train this as much as we can, but there's always the chance you're going to have a little bit peeking out the side, which is not a big deal if you have a little bit of that back peeking out. But just note, if you do, and if you have something that's a different material, you may see it peeking out. I chose to use the same thing so that if it does, you don't really notice. It'll sort of blend in Ow, I just clipped my finger. Okay, so make sure down here, I may end up trimming a smidgen off down here. It looks to me like something's stretched on the front, or I can, let's see if I can stretch it. No, I can stretch that. Perfect. Here. You can baste that close if you want. You don't have to, because we'll just sew it right in. And you can baste it actually onto when we attach it to the next piece. There we go. Okay. Look how nice that looks. Oh, let's zip it up. Look at that. And we'll sort of fold over like this. Oh, it's coming together. And that looks so pretty. Yay. Okay, so let's go on to the next part. Let's finish putting some of the front pieces together. We're not going to be ready quite yet to sew everything, but we can at least have everything ready to go. And so the next thing I need to do is mark where my magnet will go on the front. As you can see, I actually already did it. I found the center right here, and then per the pattern, I marked down where Brittany indicates you want to put it. So I did that. As before, I used my washer to mark it. And I will now, oops, drop things. What else is new? Take my scalpel, and as before, I put it right at the top edge of where I want to mark those. So you do want to make sure if you're doing it the way I do, that your markings are even. And I'm just going to pull that up like that. I don't actually, as I said, I don't push this down. So now I've got my female end here. I'm going to push those through. It can be hard to see sometimes, but fortunately there, I can see those. Got my washer. Hear my husband thumping around above me. Now, because I already have deco light on this piece, I obviously am not concerned about needing anything more there. Okay, and then, but I am going to put that self-adhesive piece of fleece over it. Just gives it a little something. There. Okay, front is almost done. I have my tag here as well. So I'm going to sew that down. Okay, these are on the back, so I'm not concerned about melting them down. If you are concerned about them coming undone, though, you could put a piece of tape on it. I'm just going to put a dab of glue. There. Here we go. So that's done. Yay. Yay. Okay. The next thing we need to do is attach our zipper flap, which is over here, to our back panel. And so I'm going to take some of these off now. Take my best clips off. Now, when we put this down, what we want to do is center it nicely. So I'm going to mark my centers here. Oops. Actually, let's mark it this way so that I can see it. So we want to mark the center, the bottom of our panel, and the center, of our flap, and the center of our back panel. We want to see where those go. Okay. And, while I'm here, I'm just going to mark the center of the top. I usually do. Surprised I didn't on this one, since I'm here. Okay. So what we want to do now is align this here. We're going to align our centers up clip along, and we basically also want to ensure that this is nice and straight, an even distance on both, an even distance on both sides here. And we're going to stitch along the sides to attach this. The pattern will tell you how far up to stitch. So you'll want to put a little mark there, go to the pattern, you'll mark up here how far up you want to stitch. So you'll go up to that point on both sides, and then you'll want to put a rivet there as well, and she'll tell you in the pattern where you need to do that. You really do want to do that. Let me show you on, well, you can see it on this one. So I did the same thing. I did stitch up as high as I was supposed to, and then I put my rivet there. I actually did 2 rows of stitches because this was so thick. Hold on 1 second and let me go get the other one, the other person. It's probably a little easier to see here because there isn't as much. So I stitched all the way up, and then right next to that, at that same mark, that's where I put my rivets. And you want that because this is really, you're gonna have a lot of stress on those points there. So I'm gonna go do that. I will also very likely put down just a little bit of double-sided tape here to help it hold in place. And what you can also do is fold over your side here, like on one, just to and clip it in place to help keep it from moving. But I think that should be enough. Some clips on the top, clips on the bottom, you should be fine. And as I said, I'm going to use a little tape. So I'll be right back while I get this all set. All clipped. As you can see, I've got it clipped at the bottom. I centered it. I did use some double-sided tape because I wanted to ensure that it doesn't slide around, but I do have it also clipped at the top. And as you can see, I did also mark the points to which I can sew. So I'm going to sew those. I think what I'm going to do, and this is one where I want to ensure that I'm sewing in the same direction for both, and I'd like them to come down this way. So I'm going to start up there at that point. No, I take it back because we're going to, well, no, yeah, we will. We're going to start up there. So I'm going to start at that point. We're going to do 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I know you probably want to go across and then go back up, but don't, because you do want to ensure, in case there's any stretch, that it's all stretching in the same direction. Okay. I think I might have, you know what, I need one more stitch there. That's okay, I'll be fine. That's where I'll put my rivet. Okay, so now it may feel awkward sewing this way, but this is how I want to do it. I'm going to bring it through, especially when you've got a cylinder arm and you don't have a lot of space. I want to go find that mark. I'm trying to, on this side, it keeps wanting to, as I said, the back is kind of rolling forwards, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm going to find that mark, 1/8 of an inch. I don't know how well you can see the back, just sort of to roll forward a little here. It didn't on this side. I really tried. I think Lauren had mentioned in one video, perhaps making your back a smidgen narrower, and that way it will, the front will sort of roll back. It's fine. This is the back. I am going to sew across the bottom just to keep it shut. Don't need to do that, but you know, it just makes it a little easier eventually when we're going to attach it. I didn't even catch most of it. It's fine. I'll probably tape it. But there we go. So we've got our flap. What we need to do now is to rivet. So the next part that we're on here will be our strap connectors. And so I've pulled out my 2 side panels, as you can see, and I've got the strap connectors marked in here. Now I am going to be doing 1 inch as opposed to 3/4 inch. The pattern has 3/4 inch. It really is nice. I mean, I do think based on the width of these panels, 3/4 inch is a great size. But because this is a travel bag, and it could potentially be heavy, I want something that's going to feel really comfortable wearing it. And I think a 1 inch, just having something a little bit wider, is what we need. In fact, I will admit, ideally, I think 1.5 inch would be great. I think that's a really nice size to wear when you're traveling, but that would be too wide for this purse. And so 1 inch is the good compromise. And so I have already created 1 inch slits here, or marks. This one is already slit, so we can do the strap connector. So that's the first thing. The second thing will be the type of connectors that I'm using. And so I will be using 1 triangle ring and one rectangle. I guess that it's not really a ring. One triangle connector, one rectangle connector. And that's because I'm only going to make one side of the bag, or the strap, I'm sorry, removable. So let's look at it. Okay. So here is my travel version that I made for myself. You can see on one side, I have it fully connected. And on the other side, I have it with a swivel clip right there. I did that because I want to know that if I'm going somewhere and I want to take it off, I'm going to dinner, I can put it down. Don't have to keep it in my lap. I could maybe put it on the ground by my feet, but know that somebody couldn't just come up and snatch it, because I could unhook one side right here and wrap the strap around the chair leg or the table leg or my leg, and that's going to help it keep it secure. Don't put it behind you on your chair. That is just asking to be taken. But I also, as I said, I would rather not have to wear it on me throughout an entire meal. So doing it like this just adds a little bit of security. So one thing you also want to consider if you're going to do this is which side should have the removable part and which side should be fully attached. This is just like with the zipper. I mentioned before with your zipper that you want it, if you have one zipper, two zippers won't matter. One zipper, you want it to close closest to you. So if you wear your crossbody on your left side, so it's on your right shoulder, on your left side, you want your zipper to close to the left the way we're used to making it. So if you're looking at the front of the bag, it'll close to the left. If you wear your bag on the right side, so your left shoulder, right side, you want it to close to the right, because it'll be this side right here that will be closest to you. It'll be towards the front. And so the same thing will hold true for the strap connector. If you're going to have one side removable, have it be on the side where your zippers close. Have the part that's fully connected on the side that would be sort of more towards your back. And so that's what we're going to do for these as well. We want to ensure that when we put this together, that the connector is on whichever side our zippers are going to close. So let's first make the connectors. I just made one long piece here for the connector because it was just easy. I'm going to cut that in half. Hopefully, hold on, there we go. Okay, so now we've got that cut in half. I was mentioning to some people earlier today, I was watching Brittany's Top Stitch Tuesday, and I said, maybe I should have a counter on my videos that say how often I drop things, because there we go. Okay. So we're going to first need to, we've got those cut, so we're ready to use those, but we do need to ensure that we've got slits in our side pieces for the hidden strap connector. So I've done one here already. You want to trace it on for whatever width strap you're using, and the pattern does mark or indicate where you should put it on there as well. So I used that as a guide, and then I just made it for 1 inch. I will cut into this one though, so you can see how I do it. And so let's see, make sure I have everything I need. You can use either scissors right away. You can use your seam ripper. You can use like an X-Acto knife, whatever you want, but you want to start cutting this. I won't cut it entirely with this. I'm going to just start. I'm going to put it kind of in the middle of the line I've drawn, because then I could go fully down. I just sliced through it, and I know I didn't make it my slice or my slit longer than it needed to be. It's within that 1 inch line. Sorry, I'm always very careful putting this cap back on, or I try to be. Because you definitely don't want to cut yourself. Okay, we'll fast forward past this. Okay, we're going to put that aside. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to take my smaller pair of scissors and I'm going to cut into that. And so I'm just going to cut to the edges of what I've drawn. And so let's, and then cut down. We're essentially cutting a little flap in here. You want it to be, the size of whatever the strap connectors you're using. You don't want it to be wider. It should be a snug fit. You don't want the material to pull when we end up putting in there, but we want it to fit and be still somewhat snug. So don't worry if it's not beautiful. We're going to cover it up. So I've got the two in there right now. I've cut this one as well, so you can see. There we go. So now the next thing we want to do, let me change my seam allowance, or stitch it down, is put the strap connectors in. I think I mentioned before, I make mine really long just so that I have a lot of extra to play with. I can cut it down afterwards. It's just what I prefer to do. And so what we want to do for both of these is just push it in. Let's get that in there. You can push it through either way. It doesn't really matter. Whatever's going to be easiest. This is where you can tell, is your slit wide enough? Because let's see, if I pull it through, yeah, that one's okay. If it wasn't, if it hadn't been wide enough and was maybe pulling on the sides, let's see how this one is, then you'd need to make your slit just a little bit wider. Let's see, how's this one fit? There we go. Yeah, that one's good too. I mean, it's not sliding through on its own, but it's in there nicely. You can see it without pulling the fabric, or the vinyl isn't pulling. And so, because mine is really long, I mean, I have plenty on the back, I have plenty on the front. In fact, I'm going to pull this up a little bit. I don't need quite so much on the back. So I think I've got it about half and half. That's just what I like to do. When I put this one in backwards. This one is right. So that's the other thing you want to ensure when you put it in. You want to have the wrong side of your, if you're using vinyl and it's a two-fold, you want the wrong side facing you, because we will eventually fold it down like that, essentially, and you'll have the right side. If you're using webbing, it won't matter, obviously, but if you're using vinyl, make sure you have the fold. You can see that fold. This one is backwards, and so make sure you check it so that you've got it in the right way. There we go. You pull it through about halfway. That looks good. Okay, so the thing that we want to do now is we're going to do a line of stitches essentially above this, I mean not on the little flap, above it on the strap. The important thing though is when we're doing it, we want it to go through so that it sews through right here as well on the back. We're attaching it to the top part of this side panel. I somehow, whenever I do this, I'll be so close to this little flap there that I miss it. And it ends up being right below where I've cut. So what I'm going to do, instead of sewing from the front and sewing right there, I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to sew from the back. And so I'm going to pull this up. You only want to sew the width of this 1-inch cut that you have there. Don't go wider than that. Otherwise you will see it on your front and then it's not so hidden. You do also want to back stitch, because this is going to help hold the strap connector in place. So I'm going to put that down there. I'm right at the edge of my 1-inch cut. I want to ensure that this is nice and straight. And I am going right above that line, just right above it. And I'm just going straight across for that 1-inch width. Let's see how we look. In fact, it's probably a little narrower. I probably could have done a little more, but it's fine. It'll be good. We're going to be stitching it down again. We're going to be riveting. This will be just fine. And so now we can see it's right there, which is good, and it's right above. So that's what we want. So I'm going to do that with the other one. And this is just how I do it, so I don't make sure I don't miss it. Here, I'll try one on this side so you can see. Watch, I'll get it, but I often just miss it. Let's see. And make sure it's straight. Keep your strap connector straight. Bring that down a little. I got that one. I did manage to get that one this time. I think because I saw on the first one right around where I needed to go. But as I said, I often will get it and it's just right there and think, it didn't do any good. All I did was sew on itself. No more than that. Okay, so we've got that in place. Now what I'm going to do is take one of my connectors and put it on. And I'm going to push it through the slit back sort of onto itself. And when I do that, it's going to fold that flap inside. It's going to bring the flap in so you don't see it. You can even see it starting to fold in this way. So get that in there. Just have to, there we go. So you just want to pull it through. There. Now sort of position it here on the front. Make sure it looks nice. Don't have it too loose. Don't have it too tight. You again don't want to pull all the material around it, but you want it to be nice and straight. Okay, let me do the other one as well so I can have them both ready. So again, I'm going to put it on and I'm going to push it back through in here. And when I do that, it's going to push the flap in. That's what you're aiming for. You can see the flap is now kind of pushed in. And I can pull it through right here and it's going to keep that little flap that we cut on the inside. There we go. So straighten it out here. Make sure it feels nice and tight, but not pulling in a bad way. Okay. Trying to make sure it's nice and straight as well. Okay, so we'll start with this one. So what we want to do now, we don't want to stitch here. We're going to go back over to the back, turn it over to the back. We're going to flip this up. You can see it's going to naturally kind of want to go like this. And when it does, you can see that little bit of that flap that popped through. We're going to sew on that, right on that flap. We're going to sew on it. It's going to go through the flap, and it's going to go through both pieces of our strap connector here. And this is part of the reason I like to have it a little longer as well, just so I have something to kind of hold on to. So that is, you do need a narrow foot for that. So ensure you've got that set. Maybe you want a zipper foot, something so you can get right there on that. That's where you want it. And so back stitch as well. Make sure you do that. Keep your strap connector straight. It can still turn. Even though you've sewn the top, it still could potentially shift a little. So try to keep that as straight as you can. Just sew right on it. I don't do what I just did, but that's okay. Went a little too far, but it's okay. So it's sewn down there. Now, ideally, I would have liked to have gotten a little higher up, but that's okay. And so if it comes this way, it's nice and secure, and it's not going anywhere. And we will rivet. We will also rivet down in there. So let's try it again with this one. Not try. We will do it again with this one. And so hopefully you can see I've got it right there. There we go. Still looks good and straight. And so now we can rivet it. Now I don't need this much, so I am going to cut these a little bit. I just want enough so that I can rivet. There, so they don't go flying everywhere. I'm still probably leaving more than I need. That's okay. Okay, so those are shorter now. There we go. So I'll be right back. I'm going to rivet these and I'll show you how they look. Okay, we're riveted on. Somehow, I love how I draw dots that look centered, and yet I can't punch the holes centered. Whatever. They're fine. They're just fine. So the last thing we're going to do before we move on with the exterior is sew the base onto these. And so it's easy enough. I'm going to clip both of them together. These here. Clip that there. We'll do the other one in a minute. We are going to, let me bring that down. We're going to sew per the seam allowance noted in the pattern. Sew the base onto the two side panels. And so we just get this one here. Back stitch well beginning and the end. I'll top stitch both at the same time after, so I'll do that in a minute. Do this one here, so you can just line them up. They should fit perfectly because they're the same width. Okay, again, seam allowance noted in the pattern. Okay, and then for top stitching, I mean, you really have a choice. You know, so you pull out both of the versions that I already have so you can see how they look. So on the original version, so you can see I butterflied them. Might be hard to see here because I use variegated thread, but I think it's easier to see on this side. You can see that I butterflied those open. On my travel version, I just decided to top stitch on the base. So you really can choose whatever you'd like. You can do it either way. I think I like how it looks top stitch on the base. So that's what I'm going to do for this one as well. See? Need a counter of what falls. Now I've got purses falling. Okay. We'll get those in a minute. So yeah, I'm going to top stitch it on the base. I just like how that looks. And so I'm going to do that on both sides. Now one thing I'll do, even though I don't need to do it quite yet, is I'm going to mark, I can tell I still had one more thread there. I'm going to mark my centers so that that's done. I'm going to just fold this in half, fold that in half, but also bring my two seams together right here. They should line up. I'm going to clip that and clip it here just so nothing moves while I snip it. Okay, so I'm going to mark my centers because I will need that. Now normally this would be when you would assemble your exterior. I mean, we've got everything done. I'm not going to do that yet because I will do it on my cylinder arm, and I'm going to wait until I have the interior also ready to go so that I don't have to take the flatbed attachment off more than once. So we're going to put this aside with the rest of our exterior, and we will put all of that together once we're done with the interior as well. Okay, so the interior. This is where we also have a number of different additions, changes to the normal pattern, the standard pattern, specifically for travel. There we go. Dropped a chopstick, dropped two purses, now dropped a swivel clip. I'm on a roll. Okay, so the first thing I've got in my pile here, let's just take care of it while it's here, is this. Here's the front. This is going to be a slip pocket, and I just made the tabs longer. I'll cut them, or not the tabs, I'm sorry, the top trim longer. I will cut it down when I put it, or before I sew it down. I just need to sew that trim down. So the rest of this is all ready. I'm just going to top stitch this on, 1/8 of an inch, so I've got the trim there. Okay, so that is done, and let's cut down the edges. Oops, I didn't cut this one back here very well. Just cutting a little bit of the thread, a little more. There we go. Okay, cut down the edges. There we go. So this is ready. We'll put it on in just a moment, but I want to see what else we have here first that maybe we can keep sewing while we're at it. The next will be the overlay. So we're going to start with this. I mean, because I have my stitch length at a 5, why not keep going? And so for this, I will pull my threads through. We're just going to sew around the exterior of it. The overlay is part of the pattern. I mean, this part isn't necessarily different. What's different is because I shortened my panel here, my interior panel, and we're going to have a top part here afterwards for the recessed zipper, it's a bit lower than it would be. I will admit I didn't use the pattern piece for this. I showed it when I was showing the materials. I use my zipper template from Warmy Now when I cut it out because it works. So we're going to use this. I've got my threads long so I can pull them through. So while that dries, we will cut out the middle section here, but I'm going to let this dry first. And while that dries, we can do the rest of the zipper, or at least some of the zipper here. So here are the zipper pockets right here. I've already adhered the tape to one of them. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be making this pocket, I guess you could call it the quick way, the easier way perhaps, where I'm going to sew it down here at 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to top stitch it to help keep this flat. You could also use tape, and then I'll come through and do the same on the other. You'll see that. Then when it's done, I come through, I just sort of lay it down here, and I just sew all the way around in the middle. I have the one piece up, one piece down. The prettier way, the way that's going to have a cleaner look on the inside, would be you just tape this down. Don't do any more, and you can put both pieces there, but you're going to have them first both flipped up, and you're going to sew just your bottom piece. And then when you from one end to the other, and leave your threads long, pull them through them, and tie them off. Then you're going to flip them both down, and you'll sew up over and down. And that way it actually has a really clean look on the inside. I'll do a video sometime where you can see both of those to see how they look together and what the difference is from the inside, which I know you don't see very often. You don't look inside your bag, but still, it's nice to know that it's completely polished in there. But I'm going to do this sort of the faster way first, because I think this is what a lot of people do. So I'm going to bring my stitch length down, bring this down. There we go. And I'm going to sew this on at 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to top stitch it down. Okay. So remember, when you put these together, you're putting, hold it up, you've got the right side of your zipper tape, and this is the right side of the pocket panel. It seems counterintuitive to do it that way, but think about it when, you know, I'm going to sort of top stitch this down. When we zip this open and get inside our pocket, reach in here, we want to see the right side. We want to see the nice side of your fabric. So you want to ensure that it's always right sides together. I'm going to top stitch that down in just a minute. We'll do a top stitching all the way around. And so you'll see how I will do that. I'm going to take the tape off of the other side. Again, it's on the right side. Get the rest of the tape off. There we go. And so what I'm going to do is lift this up. So I've got the wrong side of the tape because, again, I want to see the right sides. I'm going to align the two pieces of my pocket lining there. So I want them to be, you know, flush, the two edges to be flush. Tape this down. And then let's do 1/4 inch on this side. Okay. And now I'm going to put my stitch length up. Don't really need to, but it's okay. We're going to top stitch those down. You can see how they kind of are curly. I mean, when I lie this flat, that would be, there we go. You can see that's not the easiest thing to work with. You can tape it down. I'm just going to hold it down, and I'm going to top stitch on that. So that's 1/8 inch, right on the edge of the zipper tape is what I'm going to do. And so I'm making sure everything is nice and flat. And what I'm going to do when I get to the edge is I'm going to come over. It's going to help lock in the zipper tape. So my pull is not going anywhere then. And making sure everything is flat. One time when I did this, I didn't ensure that everything was nice and flat, and this had started to creep up and I had to pull out the stitches. So just make sure everything's flat. Come through again. And I can sew over that because these are not metal coils. This is nylon zipper tape. There. And so now that is all set. I mean, on the back, it looks nice on the back. I mean, it's got a nice top stitch line. We will end up putting another one on when we sew it down. So that's part of, you know, you'll have 2 lines of stitches, but that's okay. And you won't see these 2 lines here. So the next thing we need to do, this should be dry enough now, is we need to cut out this middle part. And so once again, I'm going to take out my seam ripper first to get it started. You certainly could just use scissors, you could use whatever you want. But I'm going to just carefully start the cutting right there. You know, I'm not going to cut the whole thing with my seam ripper, just enough to get it started. There we go. Got this back on. And then I'm going to take, let's see, my duckbill scissors, only because it makes it a little easier to get in there. Actually, what I want to do first, sorry, I'm going to take my little ones. What I like to do is I'm going to finish cutting the edge. You can sort of see here, hopefully you can see, I'm putting my scissors under the overlay. And I'm going to kind of put them up as high as I can and cut, because that way I know it's under the overlay. I mean, I can cut up to that point later. So on this one here, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go all the way, and I'm going under my overlay and kind of go up as high as I can. Now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to take my duckbill scissors and cut up here. And then I'm just going to cut along. I mean, I've got double-sided tape that I put down the middle of my panel. Don't cut your fingers. And so I'm cutting up to where the tape was. You could certainly go behind that if you wanted to. But having these flat scissors like this, it just really helps to ensure you're not going to cut your overlay. If you don't have these and you are going to use regular scissors, what I would say is try, I think I'll still use this size. When you do it, try to cut and just kind of, actually let's do it this way, kind of pull. Like that. So you're less likely, if you're kind of pulling them or pushing them along, you're less likely to cut into it. I'm not super, I don't want to say I'm not careful, but knowing me, I would cut through. So we're going back to what I know is safe for me. There we go. And so now we've got that cut out. I am going to now take my zipper, and I do want it, I'm going to have it closing to the left. Remember, because of how I'm wearing my bag, everything is going to be closing to the left because my bag is going to be made so it is assuming that I'm wearing it on my left side. Sorry, hold on, I got a really long thread there. I'm going to go put double-sided tape on here, and I'm going to put this on top. And for this, I really do need to stand up. I'm not high enough here on my my tall chair and the with the flat bed attachment. I can't see if it's straight, so I'm going to have to go to my cutting table. But essentially, you just want to make sure it's nice and straight like that, and tape down so it won't move anywhere while we sew it down. So I will be right back, and we will stitch this down. All right, I figured while we're here, we'll also sew down the pocket here. I put some tape on the back so you can see it's not falling off. I determined where to put it. I eyeballed it. I mean, I measured how wide this was, and so this was 6.5 inches, just what I happened to do, just the size that I liked. And I decided, yeah, that looks like about the right height. I mean, I just sort of eyeballed it, knowing that there will be a zipper panel there. And I just put my ruler at the 3 1/4 mark there, so that way I knew if I put this all the way to the edge of the ruler, that's the width. We're good. So this is all set, and this is all set. So let's just first sew this down. It's going to be easy enough. I'm going to back stitch well at each of these corners here. I'm not going to rivet, so I really want to ensure that those are sewn down well. You know, if you're ever concerned about maybe if it's a larger pocket, the stress that might be put in on the corners. I mean, you could always put rivets in corners too. You can put a second line of stitches down at the bottom. I've done that before too, if it's a large enough pocket where I was just concerned down here. But that's good. That feels strong. Yeah, I mean, again, this is, if you're thinking about this in a travel purse, you're likely just putting maybe some receipts or something in there like that. So perfect. Okay, now we're going to sew this down. So I've taped it down, and I can now sew around it. I'm going to have both of my flaps up. As I was sort of describing, I can do a better job describing it now. If I had been doing it with the kind of prettier method, I would have both flaps going up like this. You can't see the second one, but it's up. And I would just sew along the bottom. Then once that's done, I would put both down and go up and over. And by doing that, if you think about it, the first time you do it, flip it up, you'd be sort of stitching this down here. Your stitch would be on the back side of your lining. So on this side, it would just have a nice sort of fold. When you fold it down like this, to do it the top one, you'd be sewing up the side, across, and down. So in that way, you will have sewn entirely right here, and it will look really nice, and you're just not going to see those stitches. I'm going to do it this way. You can also do it this way. You just sew all the way around. It's not a big deal. What I'm going to do is start probably in a place where you might not think about it. I'm going to start in front of my zipper. So my zipper is closing to the left, so towards me at the moment. I'm going to start in front of it here. I'm going to go around, and when I get to the same point on the other side, I can move my zipper all the way forwards, and I'm going to miss the sort of natural bubble that's right there. So let me show it up this way. I'm going to start right here. So here's that natural bubble that's in there when you've got a zipper. You can't avoid it. You can have one that's bigger than it should be. That you can avoid, but there's always going to be a little bit of a bubble there. So I'm going to start in front, go around, and then when I get to here, I'm going to stop, pull my zipper forward, and then keep going, and I've avoided that entirely. So I'm going to do that. Keep my threads long so I can tie them off. So I will admit, this one, you can hardly see my second row. Sometimes, depending on how close you are, I mean, I would try to be more like a true 1/8 of an inch away. But it might be a little bit more than that. But that actually is to my benefit. It's right on the edge right here. Just know that sometimes when you do it this method, you might see that line of stitching here on the zipper tape. So you'll have an original one here. And then when you've attached it to the overlay, no one's going to look inside. So don't worry too much about it. Don't fret about it too much if you see it. But as I said, I'll put together a video so you can see the 2 different ways that you can do it, so that you can compare and decide which one's best for you. Okay, let me pull these through. There we go. So that is in place. I think that looks pretty nice around there. So now what we can do, just looking to make sure we look good. I just get so paranoid. I might just put the teeniest dab of glue. Just want it. I don't want it to go anywhere. And no, you're never going to see this. Could also use fray check. I just don't have that near me. There. Teeniest little bit. Okay, let's let this dry, and then what we can do once that is dry, because I don't want to clearly sew it while it's wet, is we can sew around the edges. We can close it up. I'm going to be doing a drop-in, so I can completely close this pocket. If you were going to do a birth method of this, then you would need to leave the bottom open. But as I said, I'm going to do a drop-in, so we'll be all good, and we'll be right back to finish up this pocket. Day 3 sewing this up. Let's see if I can finish this up today. So I had left off, you may not have realized it, but this is where I left off on the pocket. We got the overlay done. We got this all sewn together. Here, now I need to sew the pocket closed. Obviously, the piece is longer than it needs to be. I mean, if you go according to the pattern, you'll be fine. Do I always go according to the pattern? Of course not. And so what I tend to do when I cut out pocket pieces, I just cut them out whatever size sort of suits my fancy, and there you go. So that's why they're long. I could certainly measure, but oh look, there happens to be a fold line here too. I'm going to use that as my guide for how long I want this to be. So I wing it. I tend to wing it a lot when I do pockets. It works for me, so I'm going to keep with it. So I'm going to get this all together. We're just going to sew down the sides and the bottom. I mean, I mentioned before I'm going to do a drop-in lining, so I can sew all the way around, including the bottom. But if you are doing a birth bag, you're going to need to keep this bottom part open. Okay, so all the way around. Okay. That is done. I'm going to put this aside. I will cut that down, but for right now I'm just going to put it aside. So actually, let's see, we've got these done, and we need to do our zipper panel. So we bring that over. I had taped this a while ago, so that's why my tape is coming undone. If you prepare pieces like this far ahead of time with tape, clip them down if you're going to be maybe waiting a little bit, because that tape wants to come up. Not a huge deal, but I'm going to tape down that again. It has stayed pretty much on these pieces. It was just on those where it wasn't. Okay, let me grab my zipper. We'll see how well the melting did. So here I'm going to do a little thing here. You can sort of see hopefully here that this side seems to have melted and stayed in place. This one, not so much. I'm going to grab a little piece of double-sided tape. Get some 1/8 of an inch tape, because you can also use tape for this. And so I'm going to put some in between right here where it kind of popped up and I didn't want it to. Right there. Actually, no, I'm going to put it underneath. You could put it in both places, but I'm going to put it under. I'll show you. So I put some right under here, right along the edge. So put that extra there. Lift that up. And now I'm going to fold that back down to where I wanted it to be. There. Now the tape will hold it. There we go. So now the tape is holding it for me. In fact, I could probably even push it down a little more. Yeah. Looks good, and they look even enough. In fact, I might try to bring that down a smidgen more. There. There. That looks good. Okay, so now what I can do is start to get this together. So I only need one lining, and let me just make sure I sort of put this together. These are going to go like that, so that's fine. We'll start with this one. Well, let me think though. If I'm looking down into my purse, so if your material is directional, decide, take a look at it, and I'm going to have both of them so you can see the images will look like this. But when I look down into my purse, I want to see the image right side up. I don't want it so that if someone else is looking into the purse, it would be right side up. So I want it, when I'm looking at it, to be right side up. And if my zippers are going to be going, in a certain direction, I want it to go like this. My zipper is going to close over here then, because when I look at it, I'm looking down. Everything is, as I said, both images are right side up for me. So that's what I'm going to do there. So if that's the case, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to move one of these away. And so I'm going to move this here. And I'm going to align my end of my zipper tape, so it's going to be right sides together. I tend to put mine, I think like a lot of people do, sort of right at, it's pretty close. It's not exact, but I should, let me make it down so that I can know that the two are right. I put it right at underneath that fold. I don't put it all the way up to the edge. There we go. So it's right under the fold. You can see here's the fold and here's the zipper tape. And now I'm going to line it all up along the edge, right sides together. Oops, hold on, went a little far. And I am just using tape. You can of course clip it if you'd rather. And I'm going to put my lining on at the same time. You could baste this first if you want as well. And so now we've got the right side of the lining against the wrong side of the zipper tape itself. Now I can see my zipper lining is a smidgen long, and so I'm just going to refold it so that it matches the length of the main fabric. That's better. I'll really press that down into place. And one thing I'm going to do is clip my end. So my zipper, it actually wouldn't be a big deal if the zipper pull came off. I could put it on again after, but it's nice to have it not fall off like that. And so now I am going to do this as close to as 3/8 of an inch as possible for my seam allowance here. So you can get as close as you can. A 1/4 inch would be fine too. This is something we're adding to it, so it's whatever works best for you. Now, I'm not going to sew all the way to the very end. I'm probably about 1/8 of an inch from the end. It's just going to turn better that way when we do this. Let me pull that out. Okay, and snip these off. And then we can top stitch. And the same thing when I started at this end. I didn't start sewing at the very edge. I went in probably about 1/8 of an inch. So this is when I do like to pull out my zipper here. I find it just helps it helps me as I sort of put all of this together to have this nice, the zipper zipped up the way it would be. And so sort of, actually, what I do like to do, especially if you have a thinner material, this is the waterproof canvas light. This would also work well with the Renew canvas, water resistant canvas. I like to bring this over first and sort of fold it and crease it down. Now, if you're using cotton woven, you can of course iron it. Just careful not to melt your zipper. But I like to do that first. And then I will come and do the same on this side to sort of finger press it. try to get it nice and flat. And then we'll clip at the top, because that's most important for me to see that those are aligned. Same with the bottom. I just don't want those moving. Okay. Put my stitch length up to a 5. And so I'm going to start really at the bottom, but yeah, my humdrumper is good. I'm going to start at the end. I'm not going to go across the full length on the edge yet, but just right here, just to get it started and hold it down. So now when I come through this way, I do pull. I try to ensure that the lining is nice and flat. I don't want to pull it tight so that I'm pulling the zipper, but I want to ensure that it's not sort of coming back up on itself. Now, with this, because I did that finger press, it's pretty nice and flat, so that's good. I'm going to do the same, though, with the top fabric to ensure that it stays nice and flat. I'm not worried about back stitching there because that's going to go into the seam allowance. And so I will trim that down when I'm done. But looks good. I mean, I did get a little closer to the edge here than I did down here, but I think that's fine. Not too worked up over that. So now we'll do the other side. Yeah, that tape came off. Let's see. Let's fold that down. There we go. It's going to tape down in a second anyway once I put it onto the material. So it'll be fine. And so what I do when I'm doing the second side, I will always keep this together because I want to ensure that it lines up nicely here. But I tend to start at the bottom. I mean, it's still a little cumbersome with the zipper right there. So I will start at the bottom and I'll line it to up here, put the edge. Oops, hold on, and I'll show you. There we go. So I will do this first and ensure that that's all lined up nicely. Then I'll come across. And then I'll put it in. Oh, good. That one looks good. Oops. There we go. Now, if it was a little off, I could refold if I need to. This one looks good. Those two are good. And now that it's taped down here, that little piece isn't going to open up again. But let's get the lining. Same thing, I tend to start down here. There. That one's good. So once I have it all together, then I'll unzip it because it's frankly easier to sew with it unzipped, but you need it together when you're putting it all, when you're aligning everything to ensure everything is straight and even. So, and I'm going to do about 3/8 of an inch, but it's whatever you can do, however closely you can get, or whatever you just want it to be. And that's done, so I need to trim this down because obviously it's long. Let's trim some of those threads. Just trim down the lining. I'm also going to mark the center while I'm here because I'm going to need that. Center on both sides. A little long here. Okay. while I'm at it, since I've got the scissors here, let's cut, wrong one. Let's cut down the pocket on our zipper pocket. I'm cutting down both the sides and the bottom to about a 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the seam. Great. I haven't looked at the pocket yet. Yeah, that's a good pocket. Okay. So, zipper panel's done, pocket 2 panels are done. We're getting there. Before we can go any further, we need to sort of sew together what will be the gusset. And this is where I've been thinking about things for a little bit too. So, as I mentioned when I showed the materials, I'm going to put a piece of the matching vinyl as the top part of the gusset. So I cut off the same amount on the side as I did on the main panels. And that way, you know, on the main panels, the top part will look like this, and now it'll sort of match all the way around. But what I also need to do is add a little swivel clip to use for the, you can use for keys, or as I've mentioned, you can sort of lock your zipper pull on your top close in place if you'd like. And so what I've been trying to decide is, do I want to put it, so again, you can imagine we're going to have this right here. There's going to be a zipper panel and this will be on the top. Do I want to put this in the seam here? Do I want to put it in the seam here between the side panel and this? Or, now that I have an option, do I want to put it in the seam here? Like this. And so that's what I'm contemplating. So let's pull out the bag that I've already made with it. Okay, here we go. And so let's look and see what I did here. That's a good way for me to remember too. So now here I didn't have this option because I just used the same waterproof canvas all the way around. But hopefully you can see, so it's going to take a little manipulating. I put it in the side seam. I did not, I put it in the side seam over here. There we go. Hopefully you can see that, not in the top along where the zipper panel would be, but I put it in the side. And that does work well. And it's nice that it's kind of off to the side like that. What I could do, what I think I'm going to do though, I don't think I'm going to put it in the side here. I like the idea of this still being a nice clean side, I think. So what I will likely do is on the other, I'll just using this as the example, I'm going to put it right here. I have to keep in mind what the seam allowance will be, but I'm going to put it right here. So I will get that prepped in a moment before we move on, because it's a very easy prep that I'm going to do for this. So let's finish sewing these together then. So get that set. So when I sew this, and actually let me pull this here so we can understand my rationale. When I prepared these and I cut the top piece off, I did the math and I determined I would be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance to attach the zipper panel in that tie-up piece. So if I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, I have to also use a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So we're going to do that and move this out of the way. Let's first sew this in place. Set it at 1/4 inch. Okay. Make sure it's nice and straight. There we go. Let's bring the other one. So now we need to top stitch. We have to think about that as well. So if you're going to add a zipper panel, so I always like to come back to this. It'll help you determine what you need to do on the side panels based on what your ultimate decision is here. So you have two choices when you do your zipper panel. Do you want it to sort of come down more like this, or do you want it to poke up more like this? And many people use the depressed or perky. And so I want mine to go up. I mean, even though this is a travel one, you think, nope, have it go down. Well, wait, let's see what I did here. I don't remember. And nope, I take it back. I made it, this one's depressed. That actually makes more sense. As I started to say it, I realized, no. If it's perky, theoretically, it'll be easier for somebody to get their hands in. If it goes down, it's harder. I mean, they have more to have move their hand around. So we're gonna have it go down. We're gonna have our seam allowance go down on this, which means we need to have our seam allowance go down on this as well. So when I do this, I want it to go, there we go, on the vinyl. We're going to top stitch on the vinyl because we're sort of forcing everything down. If we had been having a perky one, we would be top stitching on the lower panel. So we're going to top stitch on the top panel. So the seam allowance is behind that panel. That's top stitched. And so great. So now we can get back to the pattern. I'm going to pull out my base piece and I'm going to sew these together per the seam allowance in the pattern. So for top stitching, you can certainly do the pattern. You can top stitch it in one direction. You can top stitch it in another. You could butterfly. On the exterior, I top stitched on the main panel. I think I'm going to top stitch on the sides here, just to have it be a little different. So I'm going to top stitch on the side, hold that seam down. Go my snips there. And then let's mark the centers on this. We have 2 reference points to mark our centers. We have the seams that from the side of the base. But I also want to ensure that these are lining up. Yep, they're good. Yeah, they're good. Okay. If they weren't, I probably would want to go in and, fix this. Something would be off with the seam allowance. Okay, so those are ready. So we are almost ready to begin assembling. I'm going to prep this little bit right here. All I'm going to do, so this is just a piece of 1/2 inch webbing and again, a 1/2 inch swivel clip. I want this to be thin in the seam allowance. I'm going to just simply take it like this. I'll melt down the end, but I'm still going to fold it over and kind of do a double fold and then just put a rivet right there. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'll have some extra. I'll sort of eyeball it. I'll show you. We'll eyeball how long how long I want it to be in the seam. I don't want it super long, but yeah, so I'll be right back. I'm going to go rivet that and we'll put the zipper panels onto the main panels. Okay, so here it is. So you can see it's riveted. There, we'll go back. I did rivet it, and I did already baste it down. I was going to put it on the top, and I changed my mind. I did decide I like the idea of it on the side, right here. I put it down a little. Now remember, we're going to have a piece that comes right here, so this isn't the top. The top is up here, but this is where the zipper panel will be. I put it over as close as I can, safely, keeping in mind what my seam allowance will be. I don't want to hit that rivet, obviously, when I sew this all together. Let me pull out my other bag for a minute again. I zipped it up. I mean, one thing to remember about all of this, none of this is going to guarantee everything is going to be perfectly safe. The goal is to try to deter anyone who wants to potentially pickpocket you. And so you can see here, hopefully you can see, I've clipped mine. I mean, I could if I wanted to. You can see how wide I could still push that before it sort of pulls. And yeah, you could get your hand in there. But the fact is, someone is probably less likely to do that because so much is in the way. And because of that, I realized, okay, that's a good location. Maybe I'd like that to be a little bit shorter. And so I looked to see where I put that on the side. and I've put it a little bit lower, so I think, and it's a little bit shorter. So I hope that will be good. But it's really there just to, again, try to provide a deterrence for anyone who might want to do something there. So with that done, we're going to attach our zipper panel. Remember, I want everything still zipping in the same direction. So if you have it going to the left, great, right, okay, you decide. I'm going to baste this on first, and then I'll sew on the top part. So we're going to, you could obviously do both if you wanted to at the same time. I'm going to do it that way. Let me bring that down. I did change my bobbin as well. So I want to make sure that I've got plenty for what's coming up. So I'm just going to baste this first. Now we'll take one of our top panels, and it is angled. Hopefully you can see the edges are angled. That's because, you know, obviously we're not dealing with a square piece here. So just ensure that you have your pieces going in the right direction so you can create that final shape of the main panel. And I will be comparing mine to that, you know, because I need to make sure my math was right. So hopefully everything I've done here will match up correctly, and it'll sew together beautifully. So I'm going to put this on now. And as I said, I decided that this was going to be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I mean, it's not in the pattern. This was my decision. So that's what I'm going to sew this across with. And as I mentioned, we're going to top stitch on the vinyl. I'm going to flip it up. And that's really what it's going to want to do as well. We've got kind of a thick seam under there. So I'm folding the vinyl up, and I'm going to top stitch on the vinyl. Now we'll do the other side. If you are comfortable separating your zipper and doing each side separately, you know, pull this off and attach it, go for it. I can do that. I don't have any issues, and I can reattach the zipper, but I also don't have any issues doing it this way, where I keep it all together. Yes, it does mean you're dealing with kind of a number of different pieces, kind of all on top of each other, but that works for me. I'm okay with that. Let me bring this back down. Top panel. What is it? There it is. And make sure you've got your angles in the right direction. So if the angle, you can kind of walk through that before. If this is how it should be, you know that the narrower part, it sort of slants inwards. That means you'll fold it down, so that's now pointing down. I did have all my centers marked and everything, so it makes it easier. But you always want the top of whatever this is pointing down. Teeny bit I need to trim on the sides, which is not a big deal, but let's grab one of our main panels. Moment of truth, is it the same size? So I'm gonna line up the middles. And it is, yay! So we can see when I line up, it's a little, okay, it doesn't help if you do it that way. Hold on, there we go. I've lined up the middles, and they're aligning at the bottom. So, yay! My math was right. So I do need to, as I said, there's just a teeny bit, there are like some dog ears on the side, so I'm just going to trim some of that down a little. Now we are ready to start putting this all together. I am going to, I'll show you me clipping it together. What I am going to do first, I think with this one, even though it's all obviously kind of together, I'm going to put some tape around the sides. I like to have tape around the edges. I'm going to staple as well, but for me, I just like also having some tape there. So I'm going to do that. I have already done that, as you can see, to the main pieces, but I'll be right back while I go put tape on this, and then we'll start clipping it all together, stapling it in place. The rest of this I will be doing on the actual cylinder arm here rather than on the flatbed attachment. I just find it much easier that way. So we will be right back I guess I will be. I'm not multiple people. I will be right back, and we will all do this together. So we've got it taped. I did tape the linings. Okay, I did separate them. It's just going to be easier. I separated the zipper. I can put it back. And let me show you one little tip I've got to help me put it back later to ensure that it will all line up nice and straight. I mark, and I do this when I'm putting any zipper on a zipper pull on zipper tape. When the two pieces are together, I put a line across at the end where I'm going to sort of feed it on, and it's on across both parts of the zipper tape. That way, when I put it on, when I separate and put the zipper pull on, they should continue to align. It should be one straight line. If it's jagged, that means I did not get it straight. So that'll help me when I put the zipper pull back on, because both of them have that line there. So we've got that all set. I'm going to first start sort of putting together the gusset onto the main panel. I'm going to start with the front for the main panel, and then I'll also do the front for the lining. But as I said, I've got tape. I like to do that, but I'm also going to staple because I just really like it to all be together. If you have two D-rings or at least two of the same connector types on both sides of your gusset, you can just put it on. Doesn't matter. But remember, if you're doing it the way I am, so one side is removable and one side is not, you have to remember which side do you have everything sort of pointing towards. Do you have everything pointing towards the left when you're looking at it from the front? If so, then make sure you put your connector that allows you to remove your strap, one end of your strap, on that side. If you have it all so that it's on the other side, flip it like that. I have it set so everything, the zippers will close in this direction, so I want this in this direction as well. So I'm going to take my tape off. You have all of my centers marked, so because the first thing I will do, I want to make sure, and I've got, this is on this side, so you're going to put right sides together, and get the gusset and line it up with the center. And I'll staple when I'm basically done in those places where I need it. But I will first clip just a few right here to sort of help it be in place. You could certainly baste it down. There we go. And then I'm going to come around. I haven't finished it all here, but I just want to bring this up to the edge. So I've got the two pieces together there. Right there. Let me make sure my pull or my connector is down, kind of out of the way. All right, let me need to just get a different angle for me to look at. So this is at an angle, just remember that, and that's fine. So just make sure you're aligning it at an angle. One thing I did, and I'll show you, I just realized I should have mentioned it. And one thing you can do is I drew on my seam allowance, especially since I could tell when I looked at this. I mean, if I had done a really good job both cutting my my interfacing and adhering it, this should all line up nicely. And I can see it does here, but it doesn't over here. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to draw. I'm going to draw on my seam allowance. I am going to go over the deck of it a little here. I'm okay with that. But I think it's just helpful. I like to do that especially when I've got some curved edges. I think I mentioned before, if you're like me, I tend to, I know I mentioned it when we were doing the pocket right here. I tend to have one curve look great. I mean, they both look great, but they're curved differently. And I hate that. I hate it when I do that. And I find that if I draw on that seam allowance, be it here, or if you're sewing something where maybe you're sewing here, I just find it helps. You never know if you've got your interfacing in the right spot. Drawing it on can help. So don't be afraid, even if you're used to doing things like this, to draw it on. I'm going to come close to the edge. I probably will need to make some snips to get it to fit. So I'm not going to, oops, stuck to my shirt. Get it as close as I can. Maybe not. Actually, it's fitting perfectly. No, do I take it back? No, we're good. It fits perfectly in there. Dropped it. So, yeah, you can see that's all done. Let's come over to this side. So I'm just making sure everything looks good up here. That might be all good. I can see a little bit of the exterior poking over, so I really want these to be as perfectly aligned. There we go. That's better. Okay, so I am going to, just to be safe, staple into this. Just put some staples in here and there. I find it helps it from shifting, and so it's just a handy thing to do. So I like to do it this way. That one got a little close, but we're okay. We're okay. So that one's stapled. I am actually going to also do the front of the lining, because why not, production sew it? Here it is. I can do one side, do the other, and then I can attach the backs to both and do those. So, oops. This one I'm not going to staple. I'm not as concerned about this one. I'll leave the clips on it, but I'm not as concerned about this. I did draw my seam allowance on this one as well. Oops. Let me clip my zipper out of the way so I don't accidentally sew over that. And so like before, this time it doesn't matter. I don't have anything special on one side or the other, so I can just simply attach it. I don't have to worry about one side pointing in one direction or one side pointing in the other. And like we did for the exterior, I'm just going to clip a few here. And come up. Now, because I have this top panel here, and on this one, I want to align the seams on both of those. It's important that they line up. So I'm going to line those up, and then I'm going to angle this in there. When we're all done, so you can see, this is here, it's lined up, but you can hopefully see right there, I've got the two seams together. Make sure. Because that way when you look inside, it'll be sort of like one continuous piece going around in a circle. That might be, I take it back. That's going to be the one place I staple it. I want that stapled because I do not want that to shift. That needs to stay. Okay, so now I'll clip the rest. This one's a little shorter. This one's a smidgen shorter, but you know what? That'll be okay. I'll just ensure that when I fold it over, I'll probably fold over this one a little bit less than the other. Fine. So let me staple that. What's important is to have those two lined up. So I really want that side seam lined up. Dropped another one. We're now ready to sew. It means I have to take this off, because that will be in the way. Take this off. What I do is, this is the screw that I use that holds the plate down. I tend to put that in my clip jar so that I know it's not going anywhere. Slide this off. And now we are set. So I'm going to start with the exterior. I am going to sew, as you can see right here, I've marked my seam allowance, but I also have on my plate here some of those sort of tape markings that you can use, and that's going to help there. So I've got my seam stitch length at about a 4.5, and yeah, I could feel it. Make sure your strap connectors are down. You don't want those up. That's not where you want it. Okay. Yeah. Hold my threads. So even though these are stapled, I'm still feeling underneath to ensure that things are nice and flat under there. Things can shift. flattening things out as I go. Bring my hum jumper up because I'm at the seam between the side panel and the base. It's just a little thicker there, so I'm going to use my hum jumper. I'm pulling things straight. I can feel it shifting a little, so I went too fast there. I shouldn't have done that. Take your time. Seam again, so I'm going to bring it up. Let's see how it looks before we pull out all those staples. Oops. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Let's see how we look. Oh, that looks good. That looks nice. There we go. Let's see. Kind of gave it a little time to sort of massage into place, but they look good down here at the bottom. I'll punch that out a little bit, and just a little bit of. Sorry, I'll get that off. There's just a little string there. Yeah, that looks good. Oops, sorry, let's bring it up. There we go. I think that looks nice. So one, I can take out the staples. Two, if you want, you can also sew another row of stitches right next to that if you're concerned about strength. Brittany does also say that you can cut down your seam allowances. I mean, really more around the curve is where it's important. But don't, she stresses, don't cut your seam here between the sides and the base. You don't want to cut that. So now we need to find, I'm going to find, well, I've got a seam, a staple remover here somewhere, but we'll just use we'll use my screwdriver for right now, maybe. Okay. I think I will put just one more line of stitches. I just want this to be nice and strong, as I said, but because it's all sewn together, I can just go right next to it. In your seam allowance, don't make it wider. You don't want to go into the bag, so you're going, if I'm looking down at it, it's on the right side of my seam allowance. So we can cut this down a little. And whenever I cut my seams down, I don't cut at the very top, especially if I'm going to be doing a drop-in lining, because you need that to be wide. So I'm going to cut it down just a little bit here. And I'm just going down to where, sorry, you can't see. I don't cut it right here at the top. Let's do that over. Sure, like you, it helps sometimes to just have this in your lap when you're cutting it. I'm only cutting, I'm dropping that on the floor now. Coming right up to the seam there, but I'm not cutting through that seam. I'm going to do the same over here. And I'm going to kind of come up at an angle. I'm not going all the way to the top. There. So I just made it a little shorter. You can come in here too if you'd like. You just, again, you don't want to cut those seams. There. Okay. So this side is done. Here, I'll pop it out again just so you can take another look. It's always nice to take a look and see how we were doing. So you can even see here, I was talking about that second row. I mean, you can still see the stitches a little bit. You'll see them, they won't be as pronounced when you have 2 rows of stitches there. Oh, sorry, that got a little darker. A little light went out. Yeah, the curves look good too, so. Great, okay. So let's turn this back. We are going to, because it's all put together, do the lining. This one is going to be a little easier, don't have to worry. Now the lining, it'll, say in the pattern, you'll start at the same seam allowance as the exterior. You can grade in and make it a little wider as you get into the lining itself, but just ensure at the top that it's the same seam allowance as the exterior. Take out the 2 staples that I have here. I did a good job holding that together for me. There we go. Like before, you can cut it a little bit, but don't cut still. I mean, even though this is not as much of a stress point, it's still good to not cut it. And I'm not going to start as high. Yep, there's a teeny little pucker right here. Not worried about it. I don't know if you can even see it. It's right there. But it's tiny. I'm not worried about it. If you just heard a crazy noise, my husband sneezed, and you can usually hear it like states away, so sorry about that. We're now going to do the other side. And I just realized something I forgot to do on the back. If you recall when we were putting together the pocket, I mentioned rivets. I did not rivet this. It is important that you rivet this. This is going to be a major stress point. The stitches alone are not going to hold it in place because this is heavy. You're going to go in and out. You need to rivet this. So I'm going to be right back. I'm going to put rivets in. If you recall, I went up and in fact, I can still see my marks there a little bit. I'm probably 1 stitch below where I really wanted to be. So I'm going to put my rivet slightly above it and on the inside. So we'll see that. And then we can attach this to the gusset. Okay, I did come through and I adhered everything together. I've stapled it. I haven't sewn it. You'll still be able to see me sew it. Granted, probably fast speed, but it's sewn together. You'll see me sew it together. You can see I put in the rivets. You'll see them from the front when we turn this before we bind everything together. But so this one is ready to sew. I did the same on the lining. You can see that one is still clipped, and so I will sew that together as well. So let's get started, and then once we're done, we'll do the drop in. So you'll be able to see me do a drop in on the cylinder arm. So, should we take a look? We're going to have to turn it anyway to do the drop-in. So I will usually push down like this to help it come out. Trying to push as much as I can before I pull. Got a lot of stuff there. Okay. I can push some out. And because of the Decaville, it might have wrinkled a little, but I could always sort of steam that out. So now we can see how the back looks. And that looks good too. Yep, those look good back there. You can see my corners look nice. You can see the rivets I put there. In fact, I do want to see. I see a little bit, since I'm right here, it's a little thread to burn down. There. How's it on that side? That side's fine. And let's see how we look from the front. So now we can kind of get an idea. Let me clip this so you can see. Of course, it'll lie a little better once there's a lining in it. But look how we're looking so far. So pretty, so pretty. Okay, and we need this out. Remember, that's part of the reason I turned this out. Sorry, that's just a little thread there. I need this to be out. I need this to be out for the drop-in lining, so it's good. It's one of those where it's not just looking at it, turning it to look at it. We're turning it because we need it turned. I'm just sort of working those. I love the color. Okay, let's now just quickly do the lining. Dropped one. And the lining is done now. Yeah, this definitely was nice and close. This is the, obviously, as you can see, that clip, which is what I wanted. I wanted it to be very close to the seam, so that's good. All sewn. Might have a couple puckers, but I'm okay. So now's the fun part. Now is when we need to put the lining into the exterior. But before I do that, I need to put tape on all of these. Now, I've got marks, and I did this ahead of time. I don't know how well you can see it. With a pen, I marked where I need to so that I can have it fold over for the right seam allowance. And I mentioned there were a couple places where, like here, yeah, they're lining up. Yeah, this is the one place you can see. On this side was a little shorter. This side looks okay. Yeah, this side is fine. This side's a little shorter, so I'm just going to ensure that when I fold this over, this folds over to the same mark as that. And in fact, I'll probably fix it in a minute. So what I'm going to do, I'll be right back. I'm going to put tape above this line, and then I will be able to fold it over like that. I use 1/2-inch tape. Although, you know, I'm going to use 1/4 inch. I'm going to use 1/2 inch when I put it all together. But I'm going to use 1/4 inch tape so I can fold it over all the way around. On the sides here, well, they actually have a little tape. I'm going to sort of untape them. If you remember, I put tape on my main pieces to help the gussets stick. I'm just going to open it up like this. I'm going to snip in a little bit. Let me snip in right here. There we go. So I'll snip into the side seam and open it up so that it'll lay flat like that, and then I can fold it over. So I'm going to do that on, sorry, let me try to show it again just in case. You can hopefully see with the light. There we go. I'm going to fold it open there. So I'm going to do that both on the lining and on the exterior. We'll be right back. Again, me, that multiple person. I'll be right back with this so you can see how it looks, and then we will be able to put it together. Everything's taped. You can see I've got it taped here. Here's my lining, all taped as well. So we're ready to fold over. Two things before I do. I mentioned that to do this, I cut into my seam allowances, so you can sort of see right there. I flatten it out. Hopefully you can see that. When I say that, I do mean I cut up to the actual seam in the side seam, but don't cut through your side seam. You just want to cut within your seam allowance and flatten it out. That's the first thing. The second thing would be, let's say you have a pattern which you think would be great for a drop-in lining, but it doesn't reference that in the pattern, and you're trying to figure out where should you draw that line. You want to double what the seam allowance is for the top part of your the construction. So if you had a bag that had a 1/2 inch seam allowance when you're sewing the lining and the exterior together, that would mean you'd want to draw a line 1 inch down, because when you fold it, it'll be 1/2 inch, and that's what you would be doing if you were doing more of a traditional construction. So just know that's what you'll want to do there. So now it's time to fold, and so I am going to start taking off the tape. I'm going to do a little, just sort of do a piece, like a section at a time. And so I've got my line that's there still. Hopefully you can see that. And so I'm folding down to my line. And if you need to, I mean, if the tape doesn't feel like it's holding it, you can use clips to help. I will be putting more double-sided tape down eventually. I like to use more when, sorry, now you can't see me doing this. I like to use more when I am attaching the exterior to the lining. So you'll see that. But I'm just folding down all the way around, taking up a little more of the tape, sort of repositioning things so I can fold down to that line. See, and here's where I might use some clips right here on these side seams because they're thicker and they're going to want to pop up. So I'll show you that. There. So you can see I'm using some there. It's not wanting to pop up so much here, so I'm okay, but those side seams do want to. Take off a little more tape. Maybe I can do it here. And just reposition myself, so hopefully you can see some of this. And fold down to that line. Now, if I've done my interfacing correctly, then I really will be just folding over that edge. But, and it feels like I am. And that helps. That helps a lot. If you know, yep, that's the mark. If I can feel that interfacing in there, I'm at the right spot. I'm just going to take the rest off. So you can see now I've got that all folded down all the way around. So now we're going to do the lining. This one will be easier because I don't have to reach inside. So that'll make it nice. Well, that one's all set. So what I'm going to do next is grab my 1/2 inch tape. I could certainly use 1/4 inch again. I really do not want this to move. And so I've just gotten used to using 1/2 inch double-sided tape. I'm going to put it on the lining and I'm putting it, here I'll show you with a little bit and then I'll take, just so you can see. Hold on. There we go. Obviously it'll be a longer piece than that, but you can see what I'm doing. It's covering about half, a little more than half of the fold over, and then it's down below as well. That's going to help to keep that from popping up. It's also going to keep it really, hopefully, from shifting much once I put it with the exterior because it's a bit higher. It's not all the way at the top. I don't want that because I don't want to risk seeing it, but it's close enough that it should hopefully prevent shifting. So now this does mean I'm going to be sewing through the tape. If your machine can't handle that, sorry if you can't see it, I'll show you in a minute. If you can't handle that, then you can use lots of clips. You could use glue. You could glue it ahead of time, things like that. So just consider what your machine can handle. But this is what I use. Almost there. Okay, so now that that's done, so you can see that's all taped around, I need to put it into the exterior. So we know that the zipper is going on the back. So there's the zipper. I'm going to put it in. I want it to, it's going to be in there the way it should be. Now the one thing that's nice about this, I don't know about you, sometimes when I do my final construction on bags and I do my top stitching, sometimes the lining might roll up a little and you can see it peeking out, and it doesn't bug me really that much, but I think we all like to avoid that. Well, you can avoid that with this. You can ensure that your lining is poking, or is not poking up at all. It's really down just a smidgen so that it has that nice clean edge on the top. So I'm going to start taking off the tape, and actually, nope, I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that first. That is not where you want to start. You want to start on your sides because you want to align your side seams. Once you align your side seams, the rest will fall into place, so you don't have to worry. So I should have started taping there too, but It'll be fine. You can just tear the paper. Okay, so I'm tearing the paper along the side seams on one side right here, and I'm going to align those the way you would anything with when you're constructing a bag. So I want those two to be aligned. There. So you can see I've got those aligned right there. I'm going to come to the other side and do the same. I'm going to tear my paper there so I can just line up those side seams. Okay. There we go. So you can see I've got those seams now. Whoops. There we go. Hopefully you can see those. And so now I can take the tape off and the rest of it, and it should fit really nicely together. This is a really well designed bag, so you can just pull it a little bit and it's going to fit. Because I want to ensure that the lining is at a nice level, I'm going to sort of take a look from the inside as well while I'm doing this. So here I'm just putting these together, as you can see, and the tape is going to help hold it, but I will also use clips. So I'm sorry, I know it might be a little hard to see, but I need to make sure I do this nice and straight. See right here I can see that my lining is poking up, so I'm going to pull that out down and have it go a little lower. There we go. That's better. And I will clip it to ensure nothing goes anywhere. Now I'll do the back. Now remember with the back, we also have this flap. You don't want to obviously sew over your flap, so be careful with that. There we go. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing a little bit. This one's a little low, so I'll bring that up a little. And this is a smidgen low. I'm going to bring these up. There we go. Okay, so I am going to clip things, as I said, because I still don't, I mean, they can still shift, even though I've got tape there. I'm going to use some of my big clips on those, my best clips on the side seams. I really don't want those moving. Oops. Almost dropped the bag. Hit the bag counter, or the drop counter. Ooh. Okay, and then for the rest of them, oh, that feels so nice with that Decaville right there. It's just providing such a nice edge. Another clip. Let me make sure the back I want to even out a little bit more. It's a little wavy. Just I didn't do a good job. Let me see. Okay, see right here. There we go. Needs a couple clips here because it's wanting to, just on a curve, it's wanting to separate a little. So I'm kind of massaging it into place. Okay. There. Right here is a little low, so let me bring that up. A little high. Okay. Oof, got it. So now, I mean, you can see it's starting to look like a finished bag. So first thing I want to do is change my stitch length, get myself situated in my chair, and then we're going to sew. And so I like to start in a seam. That's just where I like to. I mean, you've already, you know, I'm going to have to back stitch. You could also do it on the back here. I mean, if you think about it, this back part is going to be covered most of the time, so you're not going to see that. And so maybe even start over closer to the seam over here. You decide where you want to start. I think I also want to just get the area by the flap out of the way. So I'm going to do that first. Make sure you hold your flap out of the way. And so I'm going to do right here. That's where I'm going to go first. And so we're just doing 1/8 of an inch. I have to 100% bring up my hump jumper. That would not have been good. It would have eaten my vinyl. And you know what? As I said, I could see it's popping up right here. Sorry, I just don't want it popping up. There. Okay, let's see how that works. And sometimes cylinder arms do that, or at least the Thor one does. It hit a thick part right there. You just turn it off. Fortunately, I was done. So I'm going to turn it back on. We'll see if it'll let me backstitch. There we go. It did. And it looks okay. So let's take a look. We snip these. It really did that. It was just the needle happened to go right into the seam, which is not a bad thing, but it just felt a lot of resistance, and the machine said, I don't think so. And so it just sort of stopped. When that happens, if you get a cylinder arm and it does that, just turn it off and let it sort of power down completely and then come back. Let's see. I think I'm happy with that top stitching, so I'm looking on the inside. I am notorious when I do a drop-in. I always like to have my top stitching really close, probably closer than 1/8 of an inch. And consequently, if I've got my lining a little further down, sometimes I miss it. But that looks good. It looks good all the way around. I caught everything. Let me get this thread right here. I think that looks good. Let us put this on. Put the snap on. We're almost done. Look how nice that looks. Oh my gosh. And then we've got our sneaky little magnetic pocket in the back. Ah. Okay, so before we can sort of look at it and say, wow, this is beautiful, we need to finish two things. One, we need to do the zipper. So as I said, I left that off. And so, and yeah, that is the absolute perfect size. You can sort of see in here. Do it this way. And this is not part of the pattern. I guesstimated, and I wanted it to fit well, but not so tight that it would be hard to zip and unzip. And so what I'm going to do is put my zipper pull back on. I have, hopefully you can see it. Hold on a second, if I can turn it. There we go. I've got two lines there. Hopefully you can see those on the bottom there. So I'm going to go, I'll be right back. I'm going to go put the zipper pull on. I do have a zipper end that I'm going to put on as well, and then we'll do the strap. So I put the well, yes, I did put the zipper pull on right here, as you can see, and I also put the zipper end on. It's very short, which you might have seen in my version as well, my personal one, and that's by design. Normally when we put a zipper end on, we have a little bit more of a tail. I did not want that, because if you think about it, if there's more of a tail, it's easier to kind of get your finger underneath, whereas with this, it's nice and tight. I mean, the goal is to provide a little guidance, well, the zipper end, so your zipper doesn't go off. Something you can hold on to when you want to zip it open and closed. But still, I mean, it's right there. It's hard. It's just, I don't know, it's another deterrent. That's all. So perfect size zipper panel. Let's see, there we go. Perfect. And that looks so pretty. Again, if I were looking down into it, this is what I would see. Look how pretty that is. Okay, so the last thing we need to do before we put this all together is the strap. Or finish the strap. And part of the reason we waited till now is because we're attaching half of it. So here is the strap, if you recall we did at the beginning. I am going to put a strap end on one side over here. This side I am not, just because it's going to be up against the slider, so I don't see the need. And so the way we're going to put this together is if we had two swivel clips. We've got one here. This is the end that'll get strapped down with the strap end. And essentially right here. So we do have two. But the first thing we always do with a strap is we will take it and, oh, sorry, I'm using webbing, if you recall. So I did burn this down. I put some glue at the end just to help keep it from fraying. I mean, I know I burned it down, but I still just don't want it to fray. So we're going to take this, we're going to take it, and so we've got the slider. So let me back up. We've got the slider, and we've got it so the flat part of the metal sliding part is facing up, that you can see the two bent ends are underneath. So I'm going to let it sort of fall so the slider's at the bottom. I'm going to put my strap in, so whatever is going to be the bottom of my strap is against the slider. And I'm going to put it down here. You can decide how far down you want it to go. I'm just probably going to go about that much. I'm going to both sew it and put a rivet in it. If you're using webbing that might be thinner, you can go back to, I've got a video about how to avoid strap sliders that just sort of slide all over the place, and you can use the little technique I have there. But I'm just going to sew it, and I'm not going to put on my flatbed attachment for this. This is enough here. I can go and just sew this right here. I've got lots of stuff over here. I don't know if you heard that. There's stuff rubbing against the belt. There we go. Okay. When you don't have a big table, you end up putting a lot of stuff on your little itty bitty space over here. Okay. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go quickly put a rivet in this. So I'll be right back, and then we'll finish the strap. Okay. Now we're just going to pretend that this is our other swivel clip. So normally, let's just show what we normally would do. I'll take the one that I am using. Normally what you would do now is hold your strap upside down, come all the way to the end, make sure it's not twisting. Put your swivel clip on, so it's sort of like this. And then, again, making sure it's not twisting, you would put the end through the swivel clip, so you can see how it's the wrong side here is against the fold here. Here is the fold right there. Then you would put it over it. There we go. And you'd pull it through and put on the other end of the swivel clip. That's what you would do. Well, we're not doing that. We're going to take this one off because we do need this one. But we're going to do the same technique, but we are using the purse. And so I want, I've got mine upside down. I'm going to come through from the inside. I think that's where I want it to be. So you can sort of see I went through from the inside, so now this is on the outside here. I'm going to put the purse aside for a minute because it's a long strap. There we go. So now I'm here. So it's hard to see. I'm making sure it's not twisted, but I'm still going to go over like we did. Or in and over. Okay. So now you can see, attach the purse. I'll make it tighter so you can see it. Hold on. Oops, pulled it out. There we go. Hopefully you can see that a little better. This is all attached to the strap. I'm sorry, not to the strap, to the purse. Here's the end right here. I'm going to snip that little bit that's fraying. I'm going to put it in. Now for the moment, I'm just going to fold it over. That's all. But so you can see. There we go. And now I can come through. Once I get it there, there we go. I clip it on. So you can see, here's my strap. So it looks all nice here. It's nice and straight on the side. And here's the slider, all straight on the side where it's attached permanently. And then you can come over and it'll just turn as it needs to on that side. And now you have a permanent strap. Semi-permanent, because I can take it off on one side. Okay, so what I need to do on this side is, take that off. I am going to, dropped a clip. I am going to put a strap end here. So I'm going to, I think my lighter's behind me now. I'm still going to melt this down because we did see a little fraying occurred. I'm going to put a strap end on. I'm not going to sew this part down. I'm just going to rivet it into place. But so I'll be right back. I'm going to go put that strap end on and rivet it, and then we'll take a look. Finished. Got it all done. Got the rivet in, as I said I was going to go do, and put a strap end on. And in the process, I also got an adhesive bandage because I managed to cut myself. So careful with those screwdrivers. But it's a warm, one, so I'm all happy. It's fine. But otherwise, it's so cute. It turned out super well. And I think this would be a really fun travel purse. Clearly, I like it. I made my own. And so I thought I would make another one here. So let's just take a quick look again at some of the changes that we made to the standard pattern. I mean, the pattern always had this great front pocket right here, this flap that has a pocket that goes all the way down to the bottom here. That's where you put things like your wallet and your passport or anything of value in there. And it's this pocket here that made me think, travel bag. But we added a few things onto it. The first you'll notice is, of course, the sneaky slip pocket on the back. It's magnetic. It doesn't have to be magnetic, but I like it that way, so it kind of makes things a little more secure back there. So that's a nice little addition. So you can put your phone in there, perhaps if you're walking around somewhere, just to get it out of your hands and not have in your pant pocket or your somewhere that could be accessed a little more easily. So we changed that. Inside, we put, let me zip it up, sorry. A zipper panel right there, as you can see. Just another deterrent. It doesn't have this by in the pattern, but I added that on. So it's just another deterrent so that someone, if they wanted to reach in thinking, ooh, flap, I can get my hand in. Nope, can't get your hand in. To make it even harder, we also added a little swivel clip on the side so you can clip your zipper panel. You could, if you wanted to as well, if you did want to clip the zipper panel, you could clip the pocket, the zip pocket that's in there, because we do have zipper pockets in there. We added also a little slip pocket. I think that's always handy. Sorry, hold on, there we go. Little slip pocket. It's a handy thing to have. I would put like the little receipts or things in there, or my chapstick. So that is a nice thing to have in there. And then we also changed the strap. So let me get this there. Nice, pretty double-sided strap. But what we have on one side, it's fully connected. The other side has a swivel clip, so you can undo that. I made this one so that you wear it on your left side, over your right shoulder and on your left. So that way the swivel clip, the zippers on the inside, everything that sort of opens will be facing you when you wear it crossbody. It's in the front, not in the back where somebody could access it. But then the nice thing about this is if I'm sitting somewhere like at a table for dinner and I don't want to have to hold my purse like this, I could take it off, take off the one end and wrap it around something so that it can't go anywhere. So that's the beauty of having it like that. And so there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Little changes that we made to make it great for travel. We're approaching summer, so I'm guessing a lot of people are going to start traveling more than they probably have the rest of the year. So let me know if you make one and if it worked well. And if you like this, please click on the like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe. Don't forget, I mean, I know I'm the last one in the marathon series today, but check out all those other ones if you didn't have a chance that took part in today's Marathon Society for this. I know there were some other great options that are being made. And thanks. See you next time.